Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 424. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim, ruining vocabulary and blowing minds one listener at a time. So says the sensei of the whatnot, Segulin, and the Duke of you-know.
How's it going, eh?
We have some listener voicemails on this episode and some discussion about the word strategery that's fun on this show. On this episode, we are going to be talking about Catwoman, revisiting Catwoman with issue number 39, Batman number 39, and the huge events of Endgame going on there, and also Aquaman number 39, as we explore some of our favorite titles. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network, the League of Comic Book Podcasts, and the InfiniteComics.com podcast partnership. Sponsoring this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, Jim, it's time for new bundles. And what bundle did you find?
We have the Convergence number 2 bundle. These are the 40 titles, the 40 titles line, not the main Convergence miniseries going on, but they bundle all 40 of the issues together. It's the number 2 issues of them. Regular price, $159.60, but 50% off DCBS prices, $79.60.
That 50% is pretty huge because I like to, when they do big events like this, read all of the tie-in issues. And having that 50% off is really, not only lets me buy those books, but it lets me keep my current titles that I'm taking and enjoying. That 50% off makes a huge difference as far as what I can actually read. And when these things run around, especially when it's Convergence where they're going to be revisiting characters from a previous continuity, or different multiverse continuities, I want to read all of it. I want to see what they do with them. Sure, I'm very into the main mini, and that's obviously my draw. But, you know, with Flashpoint, we talked about how much fun the Outside miniseries were that gave you kind of a larger picture of the world. This is going to be one of those things where if you read the main Convergence mini, you're going to be just fine. So for those of you that are like, you know, I'm on a budget, I can't read all of them, don't. Get the main Convergence mini, you're good. On the other hand, if you want to read all of them, go to DCBService.com and get them 50% off. I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer. Save yourself some money that way, support our show sponsor, and use DCBService.com. Remember their digital partner. If you use Comixology or My Digital Comics, link those accounts and earn 5% of those purchases towards your DCB service order. Remember with Comixology to do the purchases through their portal. You can click on our webpage and go over to DCBService.com and just click on Comixology. And they have actually broken down by Comixology and DC Universe. They both go into Comixology. But if you shop through there, that's how it gets linked to your account. So make sure that you do shop through their portal so that way you get credit for them at the DCB Service site. Over at InStockTrades.com, we talk about the deals of the week. They've got amazing deals of the week, and some of them, I'm looking at Dead Boy Detectives, which is a Vertigo series, Volume 2, 50% off, only $7.49. Teen Titans Go, Volume 1, the trade paperback, 50% off, only $6.49. Justice League United, hardcover, Volume 1, 50% off, only $12.49. They keep having these amazing deals, but they've got on their top sellers list, and I've mentioned this one more than once on the show, Scalped, the hardcover, deluxe edition. Volume 1 is 45% off, only $16.49. I'm a huge fan of Scalped, so if you haven't picked up that deluxe edition, never read Scalped, or if you're a fan who has read Scalped, do yourself a favor and grab that deluxe edition because it's fantastic. And I want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. Mr. Segulin, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in depth into plot lines, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on today's show. So if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
You know, Jim, as a part of our opening, I wanted to shout out to Comic Geek Speak, CGS, just celebrated their 10th year in podcasting. Woo-hoo! And they did a cool event in Reading where they did a live recording and they invited people in and they also streamed it. And I just wanted to shout it out because without CGS, there wouldn't be a Raging Bullets. I've met so many people that helped me when I got started. I know I've mentioned people like Ian Levinstein multiple times, but it really was the CGS guys who They set the tone for what the greater podcast community is like. So many podcasts have either been influenced and spun out of CGS or spun out of a podcast that spun out of CGS. And we've been doing this for 9 years this month. And we wouldn't have been doing this if it wasn't for CGS. So I want to thank those guys, not only for supporting our show by shouting us out, especially back when we were getting started and building such a great podcast community early on, but they're just fine, terrific people. I'm entertained by them by countless hours and listening to their podcast. They brought me to the dance, and I really want to thank them and congratulate them on that milestone. 10 years is a huge milestone, and I think it's really great that they were able to make it and have kept going, and they've done quite a bit, not just for the podcasting industry, but for the overall comic fandom community, and also just a variety of different comics and publishers and things like that with their great commentary and shouting people out and getting the word out about a variety of material. So I just wanted to congratulate them once again and shout them out as being a major influence for us, especially if you're a newer listener. You might not know a little of our backstory, but it really was that podcast that brought us to the dance. So congratulations, guys.
Spinning with great speed, the Flash creates a protective vacuum around himself.
Well, our first book will be Catwoman, number 39. The writer is Genevieve Valentine, with art by Gary Brown, colors by Lee Lofridge, letters by Travis Lanham, covers by Jay Lee and June Chung, variant cover by Jim Ballant, assistant editor Matt Humphreys, and editor Mark Doyle.
First of all, from the Jay Lee covers to the interiors to the stellar writing of this book, this is easily, for me, the most improved book of the year by leaps and bounds. It's funny, I hearken it to Grayson because I'm really loving what's going on in Grayson right now. I just love that series, but that's a newly launched series with the whole theme of the launch surrounding the new title. So this is a lot that kind of status quo change, but if there's a character who I think has benefited in DC from a status quo change right now, it's Catwoman. This is a character who I'm a huge Catwoman fan. I was enjoying the book before, but I was really enjoying the book because I'm a Catwoman fan and just saying to myself, that's a good book. I wasn't blown away by Catwoman. This I am blown away by. This is a run, if it keeps going the way that it is, and it's every issue I feel this way, it's going to be one of those talked about memorable runs. And I hope people who maybe jumped off the book before have given this run a shot, because what's being done here is edgy. It's smart. It's really an example of putting together a creative team that is put together for the purpose of delivering an atmosphere, mood, and tone. The interiors really go to what I liked about things like Gotham Central. I'll actually go as far as to say, if you're enjoying the TV show Gotham right now, you should be reading this book. It's not linked to that quote-unquote story like that, and this isn't the Catwoman that's in Gotham, but what I mean is there is a tone and a mood that's set here that I think it very well could be linked to that television show because of the focus in that show on the crime families and the quest for power in Gotham and that need for that struggle of balance in Gotham with how corrupt Gotham can be. This is the book, if you want a story of Gotham right now, Catwoman's delivering it in a way that is just blowing me away. This is on my short list every single month of just one of the better comics that I'm reading out there. So I just really, if you're one of those listeners out there that haven't been reading Catwoman, I cannot recommend this book more highly now. And it's nice to have this book in this place. I almost wish this was a relaunch, only because I think it would have detracted maybe some people that didn't give it a shot because it was a continuation of the same series, if I'm making any sense there. Because to me, it's really a completely new run, a completely new take, a completely new title.
Oh, yeah. And I like the fact that you said a great Gotham story, because that's, I think, for me, one of the great strengths of, where Catwoman has evolved to. It's more. It's not just about her. It's not just about the big con or the big steal that she's working on. Where when the New 52 first came out, and I'm like you, I was a fan from the beginning of this, but it was the Catwoman focus was about the Catwoman, about the steal, about the next con, and she was going up against. She had a couple really cool stories where she's going up against other thieves and had a big contest and things like that. Those were great stories. I really enjoyed them, but when she started this changeover, when it started in going into her becoming the boss of bosses, with her, embracing the family and becoming more of not just the cat burglar, it took the character into a different direction. It took the story that was being told into a different direction. And it was something that at first I was like, what are they going to do with this? I didn't know where it was going to go. And then when you get a couple issues in, you're like, oh, this is awesome. Oh, and then it just keeps building and building. You're like, okay, this is a really cool story. And it's something that's, been crafted that it's a nice build how they did this. And there's little stuff in throughout these issues that I've really enjoyed, especially when they start pulling in quotes from various famous people. And it's never the same type of person. Like we've had Sun Tzu's Art of War. This one we have letters from between the Borgias. We've had a couple other various, and it's never the exact same style of person every single time. It's somebody different. It's excerpts from these letters or from speeches or from comments they've made, and it's put into the context of the story currently being told. And that's something I was like, man, that's kind of neat, just how, again, the writing will pull that into the story and just make it a part of it. Like that to me tells somebody who sat down and thought long and hard. And I get that groove where the creative team is sitting down saying, we're not just going to tell a story. We're going to do something beyond just that. We're going to do something huge here. And to me, that's what this creative team is doing with this book.
Yeah. It's the quotes you're mentioning are fantastic because they either focus on war or tragedy, great leaders. It's really right from literature, just the kinds of things that really frame each issue in a way that's special. This book is special. And I like that you mentioned what the previous run was like, because I liked it. I mean, I'm not saying that I didn't like the previous run. I did. But there's a difference between in a good book and a great book. A good book, you're glad you're reading, you're glad you're picking up, you're enjoying it every month. And Catwoman's always been a good book. This is a great book. There is a huge distinction. This run is not going to be one of those runs that, like, I read through a few times for the show, enjoy myself, in the whole experience, and don't really feel this massive urge to revisit it. This run will be one of those that I know right now, with the way that it's going, I'm going to want to reread this, years down the road to just revisit what this era was like. Those runs are few and far between when you start noticing a special run. I mean, unless something goes horribly wrong, this run is going to have that, because it's been so many issues in now that I'm already finding myself going back and grabbing a few issues of this and just rereading along the way, just because I really love the experience so much. And it really is an example of putting together a different sort of creative team to set. And I really do link a lot of this to what I'm enjoying about Grayson. Grayson's the writing and the art style and everything set a whole mood and tone. And I know you and I talked about this. We really need to talk about Grayson next week, because I think there's something appropriate to follow up talking about this book this week and talk about Grayson next week, just because I think they're linked in certain ways in what they've done for their respective characters. In this case in particular, though, because I was really digging the Nightwing series before Grayson, I was already like going, that's a memorable run. In this case, I wasn't having the same experience with Catwoman, and you might be in a different place than me, and that's okay, or maybe you agree. I felt like Catwoman was a good book. I was following it because I really liked the character. I thought the team did a good job. There's nothing negative I have to say about that run. This is a different animal. Completely different animal.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the exact same stuff what you're saying, where I liked the book. I was having fun with it, and I was reading it, but this is something more. And that's, I really think it was, those when she stopped just being about the Catwoman, and it started becoming about Selena Kyle. Now they always had stuff where she was exploring herself, but really when the main focus of the book became Selina Kyle and not Catwoman, I think that was the beginning of the change, because that's where she started going beyond just the thief, beyond just the really cool character, and those were great stories. Those were fun stories. I enjoyed reading them, but this was something more. This was the build on the story, and just Gotham. Gotham became a central character. The stuff that happened before probably could have happened in another city. Yeah, she had interactions with the Bat, which have to be in Gotham, but as a whole, some of those stories could have taken place in other cities, and some of them did. This story, the stuff we're currently getting, can only be told in Gotham. And I think if you have a Gotham character, it has to be one of those stories that can only be told in Gotham. And I think that, for me, is it's one of those things about the story, about the title, that I'm like, man, this is awesome. This is some really cool stuff.
I think one of the other things that's happened with this too, and I think where it's really working well, is the maturing of Catwoman. But it's not just a drop like, oh wow, now she's more mature. It's more of circumstances and events have led her to mature. Everything that we read before with her in the series has happened. The character has a backstory, and she grew up on the streets. She was this cat burglar. She was all of these things. But one of the most interesting things about Catwoman is it's not just that. She has a moral code, and she struggles with it. Her background and her thought process is very different than Batman's, and it should be. The lines she's willing to cross affect her. She makes a decision of somebody dying, a family member. I mean, and forget even just the I know that it was a family member, sure, but she would feel this way for anybody. It's not something, she knows she's selling a piece of herself when she does that. And you see it wear on her. You see it weigh on her. But yet she recognizes the responsibility she has. This is a city that has fallen apart because of the attacks on it. And she's in a position where, I'm from the streets. This is hurting everybody in Gotham. I'm in a position where I can take a role of power because of my family background with the Lion, and I can do something. I can be an agent of change. Even at the point where she's willing to sacrifice herself. At the end of this, if she walks out of this done, and I mean done, whether she's dead, destroyed, whatever, if her plans worked and she's evoked that change, that's worth it to her. I do think when you see stories like this, you get the connection that Batman has with her far more when they go a little too sexy with her, if that makes sense. Like, I find her just as attractive of a character now as you do back in that, in many ways more, because I get this more. Like, I can see why Bruce would be attracted to her, because she's trying to do this impossible thing like he is. Like, she's trying to do something good. She's trying to change things. He wouldn't agree with her methods at all. And you get that moral implication of all that between the two of them. It's one of the reasons why their relationship is this great tragedy. Yeah. It's funny when we're talking about tragedies in this story. It's because you could see the two of them having this wonderful admiration and attraction and even love for each other. But there's that thing. There's that difference of philosophy that's between the two of them. That if they can somehow just bend and compromise, you could see them winding up together, but the world often doesn't let that. Case in point, in this situation, her taking this role is directly in opposition to him. The last issue before this, when you had that confrontation between the two of them, confrontation's a very strong word. It was a meeting, a talk, a chat. That really was, there's only so far we can go with this conversation. It's the point where the whip's coming out and the two of them are ready to fight, but then there's a hug and there's like this embrace. It's such a flurry of emotion, from love to hate to anger to betrayal to understanding. All of those emotions in those sequences is something I think this book just crafts so well. It is a story about Selina Kyle, but it's a story about so much more. And I think it's one of the things that you and I are finding that are such an attraction to this. When you do a character that's clearly the centerpiece main character of a story, but you surround them with such a large environment that's so well crafted, you are intrigued by every single player. We see twists and turns. Now she's got a brother that's come out of the woodwork. That's the right-hand man of Sionis, the Black Mask. And he's ready to take his role as leader of their family. I totally believe he's who he says he is. And I totally believe he's an opportunist. And I totally believe he wants to be the figurehead with her underneath him as the lieutenant. Everything that he said, I believe, is totally legit. I adore that aspect of this series because that came out of nowhere.
Yeah, did not see that one coming, and I think, when you get the little swerves and things like, oh, wow, when you're shocked and surprised, like she had her one cousin kill the other, sister killed the brother, and she flat out gave the order for her to do it. And the cousin had to die because he was a rat. And you can't have that. And I love just the arguments and just the discussions and the dialogues about it that everyone's having because she couldn't lose face. She had to remain strong. And even, the opposition was like, hey, wow, I didn't see her doing that. I figured she'd do some swerve or do something here. And they were, kind of counting on her to make a mistake so they could take advantage of it. And even it was funny because Black Mask had that great line where he's like, well, okay, yeah, so we didn't get her on that one, but the psychological warfare is just as good. We can keep improvising. And I like Black Mask. I like him as a villain. I like him, there's a lot of intelligence in these crime bosses. And that's for me is something that I always like when you have intelligent villains and you have somebody who could, in theory, win. In theory, this could all end with all the heroes being dead and all the bad guys, all the crime bosses still being in power. Now, will it happen that way? Probably not, but there will be a body count. People are going to die. And I think, that's something also that, this book doesn't shy away from. And it's something from the beginning they haven't shied away from having a pretty decent body count. Because when you're dealing with this dark, world, this underworld, you got to have, there's got to be some blood on hands. There's got to be some, there's going to be some people who innocent as well as slightly innocent. You got the good bad guys are going to die and the bad guys are going to die and some innocent people are going to die. And it's part of, gives it a realism, to these type of stories.
This is like great HBO crime drama.
Oh, yeah.
This is exactly what's working so well with this series because there's so many players and you see them at the table. I love when there's votes on things between different factions where you see people, putting their hand up and other people not. I love the Hasegawa family. I just think the whole little twist with the daughter being Catwoman and struggling between loyalty to her father. Also, though, the understanding that her father's methods and her father's thought process isn't necessarily who she is. Her feeling overwhelmed. I love in this series that everything feels big and that one person alone can act as an agent of change, but they can't do it alone. There has to be other players in place, even if they're manipulated. There has to be other players in place for these big monumental shifts in power to take place. I love the Penguin's role in this. That whole play out was like, I'm going to wait and see which way, him playing the opportunist, which I really think, harkens back to what I find cool about the character in Gotham. The Penguin's a survivor. The Penguin would have no hesitation in taking full power. But in order to do that, you have to put yourself in a position where you take advantage of opportunities. And the only way to really do that well is to be patient, to stand on the outside, to really watch, to gather accurate and full detailed information. Talk about an act of war. He's sitting there in a prime position to pounce whenever it's ready. And I love that he's got agents on the inside, clearly of both organizations, so that way he knows what's going on. It's the one thing when you're throwing money around in a city like this and heads of families change all the time, loyalties are very tentative. Some people have very strong loyalties to the point where they'll kill another family member in order to maintain that loyalty to what's best for the family, quote unquote, best for the family. There's real interesting moral implications to choices that are made in this series. I'm just finding mind-blowing. I'm looking right now at the sequence where, they're getting ready on the steps where there's a speech and she's sitting there and we know what's coming. There's a hit out on her. It was interesting to see Bruce Wayne there because obviously Batman, with his contacts and his information, we know Batman's on top of this stuff. He knows these things are going to happen, puts himself in a place where if I need to step in, I will. And I loved seeing him there. I think there's something to that in these series, using these characters appropriately. Editorial-wise and writing-wise, the usage of not just Batman, but the whole Bat family, that whole larger universe, as far as when we see guest appearances from characters, even if they're just a couple of panels, I think is really being done very well at DC right now. It's no accident that, like, you and I tend to talk a lot more about the Bat books this year, because of the fact that I just think they're really editorially tight. And we're getting, even with the fact that some stories are taking place at different time periods, especially like with things like Eternal. Eternal's going on, and we're right now reading a book that clearly is after Eternal.
Yeah.
Yet everything feels like it's tight and of value, and you can't wait to see how certain things played out or got the way that they are, or where even certain characters are that we aren't seeing at the moment. This is a very interesting time to be a fan of the Bat family because there's a lot of stuff going on, and you feel like there's a need for more people in the city. Like, Batman isn't enough. You need more people here because this is a mess. Yeah. It's a big mess.
And you talk about that scene on the steps when they first take the shots at her. I love just how that thing laid out, because when I'm first going through my first read through, the way they set up the artwork, it kind of drew, like with the images of the different people there and dialogue and whatnot. I didn't notice, the shadowy figure of Catwoman standing on, kind of perched on top of the front of the courthouse steps. It was something I missed, and I should have caught it, but, it was something that at first read through, I missed it. So on my second art read through, I'm like, oh, there she is. Oh, that's kind of neat. They keep putting her in, the different spots. And this is one of those books that I found that, multiple read throughs. I'm finding these little bits and I'm rereading it. I'm going, oh yeah, okay, I see that. Yeah. And it's kind of, it's kind of fun. It's adding to, it's not just something I do for the show. It's something I really want to do on these books because I am getting little extra stuff. I am getting a second, a third read through, seeing things a little bit differently, understanding the characters a little bit more. And I don't know. I'm really digging just, again, as you said, just how they're laying out the pieces, and especially when they're doing a lot of usage of the artwork to tell the story. Because after the shot's fired, you've got that cool chase sequence where, yeah, you got some dialogue going on and you got some stuff, but it's the main stories being told on those silent panels where you just see, Catwoman, jumping after the guy and going down, and then you hear the blam in the distance, and they get there and the guy's dead. So did he kill himself? Did she kill him? Who actually pulled the trigger? Don't know yet.
Yeah, well, it's Falcone family member, right?
Yeah, it's Falcone.
And I like the idea that these families are big, and inside the families, people have different thought processes based on loyalties, who they believe should be running the city, the direction the city should go in, but also opportunity. Opportunity. If you're a family member who's lower down on the food chain, and you see an opportunity to align yourself with somebody else where that opportunity could lead to you then taking a position of power, that happens. Family loyalties are often very strong, but then they're also often very divided. And they can be broken down just like normal families. They can be broken down into different factions. We all have families where we're very close with family members and cousins and things like that, but then there's also those estranged people that you don't associate with as much. And if it's not your family, of a family that is like that or going through that. That's a very natural play of things. Imagine when there's money involved and power involved and your whole future is involved and you have a choice. Do we stay in mediocrity or and as a lieutenant or lower, or do we take the brass ring? And this story really plays into that so well. This would make a fantastic game. Because nowadays we've got more of these video games that are story-based. And I wouldn't, here's the funny thing, if they made this into a game, I don't know that I'd want to play as like Catwoman or Batman or things like that. I'd almost want to play as one of the players in the families, where you could make a decision in it in different story-based missions to be either a good guy or a bad guy. You have like an alignment meter or a gray area in the middle, and your decisions directly impact not only what's going on in Gotham, but your character's progress. Like you'd interact with both sides and have to make decisions as far as where are you making your own allegiances. And it'd be fun because you could go through and play the game two very different ways. You'd go play as a good guy or as a bad guy, or stay, actually a third way, you could skirt the middle. I think it would be kind of fun how that would change the progress of the game with this. I just look at the atmosphere and the tone of this and just, recognize that this on screen would look great. Like I would want to move around in the world that's been crafted here. It's a testament to the art. It's a testament to the color work, because I think the color work in this is really great. I think it's this is a kind of mood that is set by great dialogue, great art that really matches the book. And that's done here very, very well. Because I'm with you on the whole, like, I see things in the background after multiple read-throughs. I didn't notice her either up there on the roof.
Yeah.
Until another, it might have been my third, viewing or fourth even. I remember like, oh, wow, that's cool that she was up there. I mean, obviously you see her later and you know that she's there. And I think you almost have to see her later to go back and see if she was there earlier. What a great detail and an attention to detail on this. It actually gives you a bigger sense of the scale of the building, having her up there like that. And that was something that I really enjoyed. Oh,
God, yeah. Yeah. And the thing I've been digging these side meetings and just, it's funny because normally I like high action in the comics. And sometimes I'll feel that if you have too much of these type of meetings and the dialogue, yada, yada, it could maybe take away from the intrigue or the adventure of the story. But with this, that's part of the intrigue. That's part of the adventure. Are these little side meetings of her and her brother, her and the mob bosses meeting, this meeting here, that police, and just all these different little side stories and little things like, okay, what piece of this is going to actually play out? Where's this going to come from? How's that going to tie into it? And it's, just as pivotal and exciting as the dun-da-da moments that I usually hoorah for. You sit there, and again, you talk about the HBO crime drama. It's that style. This is a great crime drama, crime mystery story. And especially because we saw the 5-year head jump. So we see one possible outcome that this could go down the line. And once again, this is a story that I feel you got a great flow through from here to what could possibly happen. I can see this world turning into that one. I can see everything playing out the way it is. And I'm like, and I think for me, that's something that I especially enjoy because I like having that possible continuity. It could actually go there.
I actually like more the possibility that it couldn't go there too. I mean, or some variation of going there where it doesn't quite play out. Because I think the events that's coming up is going to open doorways for things in that 5-year jump not to happen. But this is a book, very much everything you're saying, it could very much still go that way. No matter what changes happen, it could wind up a wide variety of different directions. I loved that they did the 5-year jump. Because to me, with it being so close, you have to wonder, will it go there or not? You can't help but think that way. And that, I think, is a lot of fun, to see a possible, really strong possible trajectory. I think some of the titles more than others, no matter what status quo changes happen because of the upcoming event, lend themselves to still having a majority of the 5-year later stuff potentially on the table. And I think that's going to make it an interesting read as we get closer and closer to that. Because now, really, it's not 5 years later. We're getting closer and closer to it being 4 years later. Because the clock's ticking, depending if this goes real time or not. It's a very interesting play of this story. I absolutely adore the meetings between her and her brother. There's something about that relationship and knowing that he's in the place that he is that I think just really sets the tone to what makes this book a quality title. Here's the question. Does Black Mask trust him? It's clear that Black Mask keeps him out of certain meetings and keeps him in a controlled place, which means Black Mask is aware. I don't know if he's aware of the family relationship, but he's aware, and maybe that's the nature of why Black Mask has survived as long as he has. He keeps people from being 100% into everything that he's doing. And I think that's done by design. So that way nobody 100% has a handle on him. And I think that's how he escapes situations that clearly it seems like he's going to die.
Well, it's the DTA, don't trust anyone.
Yeah.
And there's only one person who should know everything, you. Everybody else, they only know what you want them to know. That way you can kind of keep an eye on them. If somebody knows something that you don't think they should know, guess what? There's a reason they know it, and that's someone you can't trust now. And I think that is, part of his whole keeping him at bay, giving him a little bit here, a little bit there. Plus, it's also a nice little power trip. You can if you are the one disseminating the knowledge, that's really asserting your place. You can really say, hey, I'm in charge here because I know everything. You only know what I want you to know. So I like the fact that he does that. I like the fact that, there is that, again, the level of intelligence that Mask has. That's some cool stuff. And I agree with you on their meetings. It's something neat. And I like the corrupt police force. Gotham is just, no matter how hard, the honest cops try, there's always going to be that corrupt police force in Gotham. And normally, I'm very pro police, I'm very pro law enforcement, etc. And, sometimes when I'll see a movie or a TV show where they got corrupt or inept police officers, I'm like, hey, but for some reason, Gotham, it just fits. It just works so well that there would be these people like, no, we're not going to question. No, it wasn't, because especially when they're talking with Black Mask when they pick him up, and the lieutenant isn't going to question, and is pretty much going to release him very shortly. When they first started pushing, like, well, I thought you wanted more information. No, it wasn't a request for more information. It was a warning to drop it. And right there, okay, he's on the take, he's in control, someone's controlling him, someone's pushing his buttons. I'm like, oh, okay, it makes sense. This is Gotham. You're going to have that.
It also makes, and I think one of the reasons why it works, when they have good cops in any of the Gotham books, you like them even more because you know how much peer pressure they're surrounded by the corruption of the city. I mean, it's a naturally corrupt place. The corrupt thrive. So you have people who maybe were put on the police force specifically to be, because they were corrupt, not because they really wanted to be police officers. It's a different sort of thinking process. But when you have the ones that come to Gotham or are from Gotham that are tried and true and really want to make a difference, whether they do it initially or they build up to that, there's something more powerful about them because of the sheer amount of corruption they're surrounded by. So I think it's funny how the Gotham world really makes even more a hero out of really good police officers because they're surrounded by such darkness. And it makes you admire them even more because I just think it's really cool. When you like a Jim Gordon, why do we love him so much? Because Jim Gordon has the integrity.
Yeah.
He's what we would expect from a great police officer, right? He's not perfect. He makes mistakes and he's human and all that too. But it's the fact that he's got a code and it flies in the face of the corruption surrounding him. And yet he has the bravery to keep standing up to it, no matter how bad things get for him, that you love this character even more. So I think he is kind of like, wow, he's the template, right, of what you want. And I love that kind of stuff about this book. When we talk about Roman, the Black Mask, his thought process with his quote unquote family is so different. It's his empire. He's not looking to pass on that legacy to anybody. He's looking to keep it. Which, I mean, that's not to say that the other families aren't either. And each one of them looks differently. But you do have those families where it's like, I'm in power, but I'm eventually going to get so old that I need to hand it down, and I want that name to be around as a legacy. Black Mask isn't looking for that. Black Mask is looking for all the power as long as he can have it.
Yeah.
And he wants to die with the power. and he doesn't really care what things look like when he's gone. It's, what is it going to look like for me now? And that distinction is interesting because it adds this idea that there's not one way to look at a crime family. And I think that makes this world more interesting too, because they aren't all cookie cutter.
Yeah, and it's funny because he's the guy who, and I completely agree with you on your assessment that he's just now and what's it look like, but it's his empire, it's his empire. But he's I love the fact that one of the things he put throughout there was, hey, we're going to have votes on stuff. We're going to have more democracy. It's going to be more of a syndicate, where every one of us is going to have an equal share in this, unlike what you currently have. And I love the fact that he's playing those little mind games, even though it's not going to be a syndicate.
Oh, yeah,
it's going to be the empire. It's going to be him. He's going to slowly, push everybody out and assume more power, and that's just how he's going to play it. But I love the fact that when he initially started there, and he's got it, that's why he's okay with killing off, Selena, because he knows eventually I'm going to have to kill off all these people. Eventually, they're all going to go down. So, let's start with her. Let's assume her empire in. We'll start cleaning that bloodline. We'll start cleaning out that. And he's one of those just pure wartime bosses. So it's going to be interesting to see how this series continues on and how that plays out, because a pure wartime boss does not survive in Gotham.
I love Ward because Ward's really old school crime family. I think he respects Selena, but also feels like she's not going to make it. No. It's really not going to make it. I'm trying to hold this family together. He really is the ultimate loyalist, the glue that's holding the family together with his advice. And whether it's taken or not, he's very consistent in reality. Because when she's asking him, what's going to happen if I give in to the deal that Mason said, the Calabreses disappear and we become a minor family in someone else's legacy, which will be Black Masks, right?
Right.
At least that's the way that it looks. But if we fight, Gotham burns, because if that fight happens, it's going to be 50-50, 60-40, whatever, of the families going up against each other. Allegiances are going to flip-flop throughout that entire process as people take opportunities. It's just going to breed more violence. It's going to breed infighting, not just between the two big families, the two big groups facing each other, but the splinter groups that are going to come out of that are going to be fighting each other because of the fact that one person turns on the other. A family member dies because of that. Now it's going to cause little mini wars in between. It has a trickle-down effect by its nature. But it is something where she realizes the second that I started this game, this became on the table. Now I don't have a choice. I mean, it really is. I've got to play this out to its fullest. And if the only way to do this is for Gotham to burn, Gotham has to burn. Not that she wants that. She's adamantly against it. Her plan has nothing to do with heading in that direction, but she recognizes this is a potential consequence and she may have no choice. It's an interesting sort of battle, and this is something that Bruce would not do.
No.
And it's the difference between the two of them. But philosophically, you can make an argument in her favor and just say, you don't understand what she sacrificed and what she's doing. I wouldn't do it. I couldn't see myself doing it. But that doesn't mean I don't get why she is. And it doesn't mean that I think she's necessarily 100% wrong. That's one of the things that I really like about this is I get it. And I don't know if I was debating with her that I'd be able to dispute her, other than the fact that I couldn't do it. And that's an interesting process when you read a character this well developed like that, where you're like, I get why she has to be where she's at. It's not something she doesn't want to be here. She doesn't want this. She has to be there. There's a difference. And I find that part really intriguing.
Yeah. And it's, it's funny because you sit there and you think, what is the right play? What is the right maneuver? And I honestly don't know. It's usually I have an opinion. Well, if you do this, you try that. But when you're dealing with this world, when you're dealing with this type of, these elements, you can't do a straightforward just, Batman approach. That, if she were to try to go the Batman route, if she were to try to go take down hit the crime families, do all that type of stuff, and, the Mask and the Cat, etc., the Bat and the Cat, it wouldn't it wouldn't stop the coming war. It wouldn't stop the coming violence because once this war breaks out, everybody on both sides are going to have heavy casualties, collateral damage, just massive death and destruction. That's one of the things where you try to avoid it, but it's like I don't see the other alternative. I don't know where or how they're going to play it. I like the fact that I don't think Selena's completely given up on finding an alternate route. And you kind of see that when, she's got, when she does take a hostage, when a member of, the Falcone family shows up, hey, we didn't understand what's going on. Oh, my Uncle Carmine sent me to apologize on behalf of the family. He had no idea that one of his own had been talking. He's mortified and he's trying to play her and it's a lie. So he goes, does he? Hold him. We're holding him for ransom. The Falcones want him. They want their cousin back. Mask can send Mason to come get him. And I thought that for me was once again it's an attempt it shows power, it shows resolve, but it does keep the blood count, the body count down a little bit. It's still not going to full out war. And I like the fact that she played this move because I didn't know where she could go to avoid just an all out bloodbath.
It also shows she was listening to Ward.
Yeah.
Which I found really great about this because Ward's been her advisor and, he wanted her to kidnap Hasegawa's daughter and basically keep her for ransom. He can't, he doesn't know the whole story that she's Catwoman and there's something going on there. I like that we got why Selena wouldn't do that to her, but yet that Selena is listening to Ward and there is some value in what Ward's saying. It's an interesting sort of world. This really is kind of like, DC Sopranos now.
Well, and it's also a cool way to make it's another attack on Black Mask because she has that whole line, let Black Mask decide what he's willing to risk to hold the elite, the alliances. Because this right now is putting Black Mask on the thing. Mask has to send Mason into the meeting or he's going to lose the Falcons.
Right.
Because this is, this is, a member of the, and it's not even like this is an upper member of the Falcone family who came there, who is now being held. She hasn't killed them yet, and she's leaving it up to the person that Falcone is, in, cahoots with, saying, okay, this is what you got to do. This is where you got to go with that. So I really loved just, again, there's so many multiple levels of this. And the cool scene, one of this great scenes is right before, when he's sitting there, the Falcone sitting there saying, hey, and trying to, placate. And he's got that kind of a little bit of a goofy grin on his face, even just the look on Selena's face. Does he? And you see just the coldness. You see just that hard edge on the face. Again, I was like, man, that is awesome. I'm like, oh, this is going to be good. And the fact that it doesn't flat out kill him was a perfect way of usage of it. This right here was how you show power, how you show influence without having to have a body count. I was like, that was neat.
Yeah, the political maneuvering there because a wrong move could break alliances. It really was some great political maneuvering that adds more intrigue to this whole story. Can we talk about the kiss just because?
Yeah, we got to talk about her because it's, this is one of those things that cracked me up. The modern media, people who don't read the comics, who are commenting on comic books and stuff like that, okay, yeah, she kissed a girl and she liked it, so okay. I don't get that. I don't get any of the uproar or the comment or the quote unquote controversy behind this. This for me was a really cool moment because it wasn't just, a kiss. It wasn't, it was, something. It's even in the kiss, there's not 100% certain what was this about. Cause she even said, was that me or the suit? I don't know. If we survive this, might be nice to find out. And I love just even leaving it out there as an unknown for us.
Well, it turned into this weird declaration that she's bisexual.
Yeah.
And I'm like sitting here like, where did you get that? I mean, first of all, I agree. Yeah, sure that's it. But I mean, what I loved about it was the subtlety. Yeah. And I mean, my point was, I don't think this was a declaration. I think it was just casually like, okay, now we know, that she kind of is. Cool. I agree that I kind of assumed that all along anyway with her. I mean, it wasn't like one of those things where I'm kind of like, wow, I'm shocked. But I think what was lost a lot of times in the reporting on it was the brilliant scene. It was a brilliant scene. It isn't just the kiss. It was the build up to it. She's at a crossroads. Catwoman knows the choice that she's making could be the end for her. More than likely will be the end for her. She's accepted that fate. That kiss was every bit as much of a potential kiss goodbye, a thank you, a show of trust. Because Catwoman in that moment really gives in and just says, hey, I got some info for you. And her donning the costume is really about hiding her identity. Being able to fight against the things that she sees as injustices in her world. She takes a huge risk with every step she takes in that Catwoman outfit because eventually somebody's going to discover it's her.
Yeah.
She's revealing information that clearly only somebody in that organization would know. But she does it because there's a moral code in this dark world with her. Find it so interesting. I think Selina's connecting with that and finding a kindred spirit. And that part, when you see that kiss, is very quick, very subtle. But there was so much emotion behind the whole sequence building to it and walking away from it that I wish that was covered more in it. Here's the thing that I love about the coverage. Anytime you do that kind of coverage, guess what it's going to do? People are going to check it out.
Yeah. This
book, I want people checking it out. So I think it's great. I'm glad the coverage is out there. I'm glad people are talking about it. I'm glad it made some noise. I wish it made more noise, in all honesty, because this is a book that's very worthy of picking up. And I hope that the people who pick it up for that actually read the story. Because if you read the story, you can't help but get sucked in. So I hope it generates more readers for this book because of it. I love that it wasn't put in there to be controversial, though. It was very story-based. We saw a build to this. It made sense. I love that it was matter of fact. It wasn't something that was, oh my God, this is a shocking revelation now. It wasn't even about that. Like, that was nowhere in it. It was just this thing that happened that, like, if the two of them wind up at some point having a relationship because of this, it makes perfect sense to me. If it's never addressed again, it makes perfect sense to me. You don't know what's going to happen in this world, and it all feels right. I think it's really cool. And I think the two of them probably are two of the more connected people right now in the Batman universe because they relate on a philosophical level. So I can't wait to see where this story goes.
It's funny. One thing I just do want to comment on. I wish the people who, actually the mainstream media and whatnot that comment on this actually talked about everything that was the build up to this. Because that to me is more of an indication that she has feelings for her other than the kiss itself. I don't think was a declaration. It's more of just the stuff leading up to it and the building of the trust and just everything that happened between them. That could be for me more of an argument, towards, a declaration for her. But it's, I don't know. It was one of those things. I was just like, I remember when I first read it, read the book. Okay. And I just, continued on. It didn't even register. It wasn't even a thing like, oh my God, I can't believe. And then I started seeing the news clips and I'm seeing all these people like, wait, hold on. And I had to go back and reread it to go, oh yeah, okay, I can see what they're saying now. But for me, it was just so natural that these two women would just have that, exchange, would have that moment. And it's, I don't know. It's weird because just seeing what people decide to react to, see what people just, latch on to. And I agree with you. I hope it did bring people to read this book and they actually sat down and read it and not just fast forward into the kiss and see what happened there, because so much more happens in this book. So much more, between these two, you go back a couple issues and you see this buildup between these two, that you get a really great story between them and an expression, an exploration between them. And it's a, what is it really? I don't know. I don't know exactly where they're at, but I want to see that explored. I want to see that answered.
Yeah, it's the better coverage that I've seen with it did address the story to a certain extent. But majority of it wasn't. It was really the, oh my God, now we know. It's like, like this was really a thing. Like anybody like was really shocked by this. If there's a character in the DCU just because of her nature as a survivor and the fact that, there's probably been times where she's really detested men. I mean, I think if you go back to Frank Miller's Year One, I don't know, the way that he reworded Catwoman there, I'm really not all that shocked. I mean, it's there's probably times where men were like an awful thing in this world. So I could see her, kind of skirting the line and just kind of valuing trust. Valuing trust, I think, was the interesting part about this relationship, knowing that this girl took a risk to trust her and admiring the situation that she's clearly in, because Catwoman's clearly in the same boat. They are two people that like are connecting over their shared experiences that are for all their differences, they're a lot closer aligned than probably either realized as the story continued. But that led to the attraction of Hasegawa putting on the Catwoman outfit to begin with. Really cool story.
Yeah.
The Penguin, again, in this issue, was just great. Losing the evidence and using that opportunity to say, okay, now, give me this. But here's the thing. I'm not entirely convinced that he's on Black Mask's side.
Oh, I know he's not.
Yeah.
I you know what? Penguin is on the Penguin side. Let's be honest. And, Penguin realizes that he could ally right now with Black Mask. And if at the most opportune moment, if it looks like Catwoman, Selina's going to win, he can change sides back to Selina's, and she would be more understanding of a double cross, than Black Mask would have been towards him. She would recognize, okay, she's more of a rational type person where, if he had initially signed up with Selina and then tried to double cross her to join Black Mask, he wouldn't have gotten anything from Black Mask. Whereas he initially signs with Black Mask, he hangs with Black Mask until he needs to double cross Black Mask. Selina would welcome him in. So I think that this was a smart play on his part.
Or does he benefit more from turmoil? Is he really choosing a side? Or is he going to, opportunity-wise, push one side or the other against each other to keep the turmoil going? Is he more of a benefit by them self-destructing?
Well, rules of acquisition do say that war is good for business.
Right. And he, in historically, he has been a player that has always benefited by conflict in Gotham more than peace. Yeah. I mean, that's really been his MO. So he's an interesting wild card to put in this whole thing, because you can't take anything with the Penguin at face value.
Yes.
I want to say again, the casting of him in Gotham is the most brilliant casting on a television show in a while, because
that guy is awesome.
Oh,
absolutely awesome, man.
Even though, he doesn't have the same exact physical attributes, my gosh, does he pull off the swagger, the personality? Woo. He's really made on television the Penguin a major player again. Seeing this Penguin in this story right now, it's our Penguin from the comics, but it's funny how much I connect him with the TV one too. They're really doing a really great job of making the Penguin a unique and interesting player in the Batman universe, and this book in particular is where they're really benefiting from him. Really, really good stuff.
Oh God, yeah, I'm so happy with Catwoman right now, and it's weird for me to say that because I've never been a super hardcore Catwoman fan, and you've always thrown, hey, you got to read this run, hey, you got to read this run, and there's been a lot of these iconic runs that I've read them, I thought they were kind of neat, but it never really latched me on. This is a run, I gotta tell you, man, I'm really latched into this character. I want to see where it goes and how it hangs out and what happens to her, and it's this Selina Kyle is awesome.
Yeah, it's really, everything you're saying is 100% true. It's one of those runs where there's something unique about it, and it's a special sort of run, and I'm just glad to see it playing out so well. Hey, you want to jump from this to talk about Endgame?
Yeah.
Our next chat is going to be of Batman 39, Endgame, Part 5. Scott Snyder's the writer, pencils by Greg Capullo, inker Danny Mickey, Colorist is FCO Placencia, letterer Steve Wands, cover by Capello, Mickey, and Placencia. The variant cover by Andy Kubert and Brad Anderson. Harley Quinn variant cover by Jill Thompson. Assistant editor is Matt Humphreys. The editor is Mark Doyle. And Batman, of course, created by Bob Kane. This is one of those things, Jim and I had a plan for what we were going to talk about on this episode, and one of the books we wanted to focus on was Catwoman, and we have a whole list of titles that we're going to get to. This came out of nowhere. This issue was released, and I read it, and I was talking to you during the week. You hadn't read it yet. And after reading this issue, I was like, we got to talk about this. And Snyder has just had a brilliant way of every single story arc he's done in Batman, whether it's Court of Owls or Joker or anything that he's done with his run. And this goes all the way back to when he was writing Dick Grayson for the year. You know, this is like every story has an impact and it adds something new to the lore. But this is the best part of Batman, when there's a large unfolding mystery. This mystery of the Joker, he is the master of the sleight of hand. What story's real? He has crafted this story and allowed it to fester, that he is this entity that has been around for hundreds of years, to the point that he's so convinced Batman that this might be on the table that Batman has to go to the Court of Owls to find out if this is true. Not just for the cure to what's going on here, because the Court of Owls would have access to that because of their talons, but the idea that could what he's saying be true? He needs to dismiss it. He needs to know, or if it is the truth, he needs to know that this being is something more. I think, you know what? I'm becoming more and more convinced the story's bunk, and the Joker's just that good. I think he's very much a man, and he's just found a way to make everyone believe. I could be wrong, and I would be fine if I am. I love that it's... Even though I can make that statement, I love the fact that Joker, Eric Border, everything you want to say about him has got me convinced that I believe this, but there's a little part of me that he's convinced this is how he gets away with it. Because the story's never pinned down. Even the backup story in this, where it looks like they're pinning it down, he pulls the sleight of hand and makes you believe, wait a minute, he helped write that. How great is that?
Oh, my God. I tell you, supernatural Joker, is he a person? What, who, what not? What is the Joker? I have been loving that because, when they first introduced looking at maybe he's something supernatural, like, oh my God, that'd be awesome. Like, wait, no, he's a person. Yes, he is. No, and I flip-flop back and forth so many times. I no longer know what I think. I've confused myself as to what I think the Joker, because I'll start throwing out an argument and about halfway through it, I'll shift turns like, wait, but then we got this and then you got that. Wait, what about this? Hey, there's so much stuff that he's done, and it's again, he is that evil version of Batman. He's got that level of intellect. He's got that level of strategery. He's got that level of planning that everything is laid out exactly how he wants it, but it's got that sick, twisted version of it. So, but it still has that intelligence. He still has that level of planning. The Joker's got everything. He's anticipated what everyone's going to do, including the Bat. He knows what the Bat's going to do. He knows what the Bat's next plan's going to be, and he's preparing for that. I love seeing that.
You know what I love? That you brought up strategery at this point. Because, and especially after talking about the man who uses strategery is sick and twisted, because it clearly is the sick and twisted version of strategy.
Yes. Hey,
this is one of the few times. This is one of the few times where I'm like, you know what? I'm going to agree with him on this one. It seems poetic. Here's what I think's going on, and I could be wrong on this one. This is speculation, which is part of the fun of this. I think, very similar to how the Talons have had this longevity, the Joker at some point in time with the whole Court of Owls thing going on has gotten that into his system. I do not think he was around back then. I think that the Joker has crafted this as a way of further messing with people's heads. I don't know that we're going to get an answer at the end of this to that whole storyline. I don't know that it matters that we do. What I think, though, is the reason why the Joker has survived now is because the opportunist that he is, he's made a twisted version of what's kept the Talons alive in order to make himself, at this point, have a little bit more of an edge. And he's using that because clearly, you know, with the Court of Owls, he's used that as this new variant of the Joker toxin, this deadly variant of the Joker toxin. But I think because of that, there's been a benefit to make himself seem like something more than he is, but also to survive what happened with his face being cut off. I love how that's played into this now. We're seeing more that, how did he survive as Eric Border? And we're seeing the makeup and, you know, the way that the Joker's basically quote unquote crafting his face. I really love how this storyline has gone on. The Joker's been one of those characters that throughout the years has needed various refreshes to make him this compelling villain again. You know, to make him have value. If you take a look at why is Killing Joke to this day still one of those beloved stories, that story redefined the Joker for a generation. These recent stories that Scott Snyder's been doing with the Joker, you know, Death of the Family, I should say, and this storyline Endgame, he's once again redefining the Joker for a new generation. And it's so working well for me. I'm compelled by the character. I love that I'm trying to figure him out and wrap my head around him. And it is because of the Joker's strategy that we can't quite do that. Even when we think we know what's going on, even when the story seems to be telling us what's going on, there's that disbelief that works with this character in a way that it doesn't work with any other. And I think Snyder's added just a nice little stamp on him, a nice little twist on him, while at the same time looking at everything that's come before and keeping that, it still feels like that guy. You know, the one that we've seen all along, the guy who tied people up to giant birthday cakes. Yeah, it's him. It's the same guy, but the game's been upped and he's been defined with a little bit more edge for a new generation. The way Killing Joke did. Killing Joke did this and did it so well. These are stories that matter. They're stories that are going to be looked at in a decade. And people are going to go back and go, you know, remember that Endgame story with Snyder? Remember Death of the Family? You know, these are things that people are going to look back on and go, wow, you know, how much that defined the Joker for this particular generation. I think it's great. I think it's really cool that they retool some of these villains for this purpose to make them feel current and contemporary. If you don't do this, characters start to become dated and they start to not speak to current and contemporary issues. I think that's why we see these television shows now doing so well, is because these characters are written on those television shows in a way that feels timeless, that feels current, even though you can't really quite place Gotham. I would really say this with, you know, Arrow and Flash, it's clear they're happening now, but Gotham, it really is, you can't quite place the era, yet it does feel current at the same time. There's something to that balance of timeless but current that works. This is a story that's timeless but current. It just, woof. The Joker here is just great. The Gotham City Now opening with the upside down bat symbol, just the creep factor of all that is just mind blowing. And I'm going to let you go because I could have diarrhea of the mouth about this. And with Batman, I don't shut up clearly. But just really great stuff.
Yeah. Sunday, March 8th, a date which will live in infamy. Mm-hmm. Sean Whalen has embraced and utilized in a sentence strategery. And not a sentence that just says, Jim, strategery is not a word, you idiot. You actually utilized it in a word. I'm tearing up here, man. I'm getting a little verklempt just hearing you, the fact that you finally accepted it.
Yeah, I accepted that it applies to somebody that you defined, and people can go back and listen to it again, as sick and twisted. But hey, you find comfort in that, buddy.
Let's comment on that opening, because I agree with you. Gotham City Now. My enemies have a secret pact. They think I don't know about it, but I do. Mm-hmm. The pact is, on the day I die, they will shine the bat signal over the city. It was the Joker's idea, a light in the sky to commemorating me, bat hanging upside down at rest. Seeing it now, I can't shake the feeling I'm dead already, narrating my funeral. dang, that's an opening of a book. And you see the bat symbol hanging upside down. Because I remember when I first flipped it before, because you see the panel, and then you see the words. I'm like, oh, that is awesome. Especially because we're dealing with something called Endgame. This is it. This is the last big hurrah. That's whenever I hear Endgame, that's where I'm thinking. So is this the death of the Bat? Is this the death of the Joker? Is this something else that we haven't been able to grasp yet? We don't know exactly where Scott Snyder's going to go with this. And I think that for me is something that's making me enjoy this story even more. It's the mystery of the Joker is wonderful. I'm loving how this is all playing out. But in the back of my head, I still have this thought going in my head. This is called Endgame. Mm-hmm. There's a reason it's called Endgame. There's a reason Death in the Family was called Death in the Family. Someone in that family died. Who is the Endgame? Who is which Endgame is this? Which character? I love the fact that, even we're getting this great story. We're getting swerve and bobs and weaves and just, little twists and turns. But in the end, there's still going to be one last big play. There's still going to be one last big swerve at the end of this story. And that's something that has me eagerly excited and anticipating what's next. What's going to be that last play?
Well, the end game, too, I guess I kind of look at it as a shift in philosophy from the Joker. Because the Joker enjoyed playing with the Bat. I mean, this is something that I think Death of the Family and really kind of defined his shift in philosophy. Death of the Family, it was clear that he felt that like Batman's family somehow held him back. Now, the Joker clearly was the thing that pushed him forward. Now he believes the Batman's like basically without salvation in his mind, and that it's a waste, and because of that, he's raging out and destroying the city, and this is his lashing out against what he feels is a failure in many ways. It's an interesting sort of philosophy with the Joker. I think is where it's this crazed, sick, erratic individual. Now, what happens when he no longer thinks he's the guy that has that role? And we're seeing that here, and wow, when it plays out, it's so interesting. It's funny, you and I did not plan on talking about this issue, but how can you not? Yeah. There's so much going on here that I think is really compelling and interesting. I like the fact that it's not all spelled out. There's a lot here going on that you have to kind of go, huh? And reread and kind of play through in your mind to try and put the pieces together. It's a great Batman mystery. And that's something that I think it works so well in this. It sets Batman apart from other characters. I think every character needs those moments. You and I have been very Superman happy lately. And why? Because we've been reading stories with Superman that set him apart, that really define what is different and unique about Superman. Catwoman, great example. We love that issue. Why? There's stories that are setting apart Catwoman. What's unique and different about Catwoman? We're seeing more and more characters that are being defined in great runs that really are setting these characters apart and unique. Animal Man, when New 52 kicked off, I loved Animal Man. What did I love about Animal Man? It really defined that character as something unique and different. The family experience that we were going on there, that Jeff Lemire crafted in that. I really was interested in Buddy, his entire family, and how he interacted with the world, because it would be different because he's this avatar. And that part I thought was just really compelling and interesting. This story is setting itself apart because, if you're a Batman fan or you're not, it's defining what sets the Batman world apart. And it's not just Batman, it's his villains, it's his supporting cast, it's the people of Gotham and what happens when that world is being destroyed. Think about what's happened in Eternal right now. How much worse can it get for Gotham? Well, guess what? The Joker's got a new toy. And it affects everybody. I like that this is something where Batman tries to plead with the Court of Owls. Hey, you've been behind the scenes as puppet masters and all that. You can't want this. And they're like, we survived many different changes in Gotham. We'll just come in and pick up the pieces afterwards. Their whole attitude is very relevant to who the Court of Owls is. And behind the scenes, you don't know, are they telling Batman that they have been back behind the scenes crafting new power? There's some to be some kind of alluding to the fact there's different factions of the court, and that this particular faction is now taking power again behind the scenes. They're building up, and when they're ready, they will strike. But the point is, on their end, why would they tip their hat to Batman? And they're not. They may step in on this. They may not step on this. They're not going to tell him. And they're only going to give him what serves the purpose of the court. Very interesting how that sequence plays out. I loved the Court of Owls being in use of this. Talk about a compelling new villain being added. I would argue that since Bane and Hush, the Court of Owls are one of the best new additions to the Batman mythos, because they are, if they're written correctly, when Snyder leaves the book eventually, these are going to be characters that have a relevance. If nobody does them right again, they still will be somebody that you're going to have a generation that's going to look back and go, man, when I was reading Batman, the Court of Owls was super cool. It's kind of like Deacon Blackfire in the Endgame coming back in. I read The Cult. I love The Cult. Another great character in the Batman mythos. These are people, though, when you consider Batman's main rogue gallery, you consider the Joker, you consider the Riddler, the Penguin, Mr. Freeze, some of the players that like you remember throughout, history, Catwoman. These are characters that are Poison Ivy, that have been in the Rogues Gallery forever. The newer people like your Banes and your Deacon Blackfires and, Hush, they're newer. And they are going to inspire a future generation. They've added something new to the Bat mythos that's interesting. The Court of Owls is very much like that, very appropriate for this story, and the writing of them was absolutely top notch.
Oh God, yeah. It was funny because when he was going to them to get information, I knew he wasn't going to really get anything out of it, just because there's no way the court would align themselves with him. Right. This so fits the court, how they handle this, how they're approaching it. Everything that they did this was not a surprise for me, but I still loved seeing it. There wasn't a swerve in this. Everything that played out, this is how I would expect this to lay out because of who the court is and how they look at it. But even going into that, knowing that, I 100% was like, man, this is awesome. The fact that, you see Bruce going through this, you see Bruce doing this, and you see them just how this played out. This was, how I would picture in my head. This exceeded my imagination, exceeded how I would expect it. It's the outcome is what I would think, but just the actual getting from point A to point B, that process right there for me was a really great, story within a story within a story being told. And I agree completely with you on the Court of Owls that I think, you got to have the right person who understands the court, who understands what they're about, and it's just not a cookie cutter villain. It's not just somebody who wants to conquer Gotham. There's something beyond just the owning and the power and everything that the court has had, come out of this. There's something just that one little level beyond that. Why? Because they are a Gotham. And, the city itself has its own lifeblood. Well, right here, this is part of that life. This is part of that darkness that is in Gotham, is the Court of Owls. I love just how the fact that they're still around, even though Batman did a crippling move to them, and throughout multiple titles, there have been crippling attacks on the court. But you can't kill the court. It's, again, as long as Gotham stands, they stand. And as long as you level Gotham, guess what? They'll still be there because they are Gotham. And I love the fact that they're talking about, hey, let the clown, burn it to the ground. He'll burn it, move on to another place. It's what clowns do. The city will rise again, pure and cleansed, and we will help it along. I love just that notion of who they are, is very locked in them. This is the court.
The metaphor of the upside down Gotham above them, I thought was really cool. We always build them hanging upside down, then turn and place them, Batman. We do it to remind ourselves that we're beneath Gotham, that it's something above us always. We shape it, bend it to our will, but it's greater than any one of us. So let the clown burn it. That whole thing is just kind of, which I don't want to redo that because you just introduced that so well, but just that idea and Batman's defiance of it in spite of that and going after that first Talon to kind of find out the real information that he's looking for. Was he around 400 years ago? The Joker, the Pale Man, was he? And, he got the answer there. He knows the answer, right? Did you get the impression that he walked out with that answer? We just don't know what it is yet?
I think so. I think I think he would give it up because again, there is a bit of it's not. I don't know, man. It's a tough one because on one hand, you look at just the discipline, but you do, there is still some connection. There is still some humanity type of thing. I think Bruce could get through to the Talon just because of the code of honor, just because of the combat, just because of everything that these two have dealt with. Bruce beat him right there. And I could see him giving it up because he was defeated. And just it's kind of that warrior code type of thing. So I think Bruce knows the truth, and the truth is I don't think the Joker's been around all this time. I like your idea that he has a lot of these chemicals flowing through his body, and he's not human anymore, but he's not 400 years old.
Now, the Joker's really in the cave, right? And that really happened to Alfred. That wasn't a dream sequence, right?
Oh, no, that's 100% real.
Okay, yeah, because I'm looking at that. I'm like, it's the card and everything. And I think one of the great parts about him coming out of the water like that, look at his face. It's clear that everything that, like, the face that we're seeing of him right now is a cover-up for the fact that his face was, in fact, cut off. And that all happened. This is all makeup or, those type of things to it. Taking Batman's right hand, literally, cutting it off, with what he did with Alfred, I was blown away. I'm like, wow, talk about a lasting impact of this story. That's going to be a part of Alfred's status quo now. How much more can Alfred take? Like, with what the dude just went through in Batman Eternal, this takes place after that, right?
Yeah.
So now he's getting back to normal, and his hand's been chopped off. What more can you do to this guy and have him still keep getting up? He never ceases to amaze me. Talk about great writing of a character. His ability to endure with everything, from the loss of the Waynes and taking on Bruce straight on through to present day. He's witnessed pain, violence, death, now dismemberment. It's just this guy keeps coming back from a variety of turmoils. You can see why Bruce looks to him as a father figure. And I just hope he's okay. Where is he after this? Because we don't know.
No, we don't, do we? I like the fact that when Joker gets there, he's like, "Oh, you kept it." The Red Hood,
Mm-hmm.
And he's going through the different, Alfred's safe. He crawled into the armory.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, when Bruce is talking to Penny too, she let him know he crawled into the armory to get more weapons. So Alfred loses a hand and he doesn't lay down. He continues to fight. Joker did some more stuff to him. But he still kept fighting, and he was going to reload keep fighting. You gotta love Alfred, man. Chop off a hand, beat him, do various stuff to him, and he keeps fighting.
I'm glad that you clarified that. Here's what I was wondering, because it was so close to when that happened. I guess I read that differently, and I agree with you now. I was reading that as she didn't know yet what happened to him. But I think you're right. I think that's exactly how it reads. I like that much better than I was taking it as she didn't quite know yet and we didn't know that he was safe, because it literally is the next page. I'm like, well, how would she know that already? So some time passage has happened. There's things off camera that we haven't seen. The communication between her and Alfred. He's stable. He lost his hand. Ooh. I can't wait to see what's going on. I wonder if they can give him a hook hand like Aquaman. Be like,
come on, he's getting a cybernetic.
Oh yeah, he's got to. Come on. Well, but wait, hold on. Wait, say what you said again.
It's Wayne Enterprises.
Say what you said again.
He's getting a cybernetic hand
from
Wayne Enterprises.
Are you forgetting the current status quo?
True.
We got a problem, Houston.
Okay, he can get it directly from Cyborg. How about that?
You know what? Batman's going to you're right. He's going to have to go to, because, right? I mean, am I right? That's a problem right now.
Well, yes and no. Here's the thing.
Okay.
If you honestly think he doesn't have everything locked down and completely where at any point in time Bruce Wayne could step back into control of this, of the company and everything, then you don't know Batman. My guess is Bruce is let everyone have this image that he doesn't have control. In reality, it'll be one of those bam, bam, bam maneuvers, and he's back in power. And it's been the whole time he's wanted people to think that he didn't have the power. He's wanted, people to think that Batman is going to be weakened by the fact that Bruce Wayne isn't around. I've got 100% faith in Batman and Bruce.
I do too. It's just you and I've got a very different sense on time progression here. I'm taking it as the events of Batman Eternal happened. He's jumping into Endgame. He hasn't had time to do what you're asking. He did not see what was coming in Endgame. There's no way he accounted for that. Now, that's not to say that Batman hasn't accounted for things and put himself in a place where he could retake power. Right. I don't think he's had any opportunity to put that in play for this. Do I think he can? And do I think we're going to eventually see everything you're saying? Do I think we're going to eventually, see the events of Eternal evolve to where Batman's back in power again over there? Absolutely we are. But I don't think he's had an opportunity to do anything like what you're talking about because of the fact that Eternal hit him out of nowhere.
Yeah.
What happened in this was devastating on a level that it wasn't a hostile takeover. It was a defamation and destruction of the name of Wayne and Wayne Enterprises to the point where there's a hatred for Wayne Enterprises. It's not even about, at this point, retaking the company. It's the company's image has been destroyed and devastated to the point where he can't have a role in it. It's going to be very interesting to see how the recovery happens from this. The timing is crazy nuts for what just happened to Alfred because of that. I'm going to be curious to see. To me, it's far more interesting to see, okay, how does he get out of this? And yes, he's going to. Actually, we're not disagreeing. He's going to be able to get out of it because he's Batman, and Batman will figure a way. And Alfred's going to have something in place of that stump. It's just going to be interesting to see what path that takes because I don't think that Eternal and Endgame were meant to be short-term flash in the pans. I think there's going to be status quo that comes out of this. It's going to be huge. And it's going to be interesting to see how it plays into this particular event.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah. It's funny because art sequences, just that the horrificness of when Alfred gets his hand chopped off.
Oh, yeah.
But one panel right before that, where the Joker is taunting him from the shadows, and you can see him just in the shadows, but you still see the blood splatter that is the Joker's face. And as Alfred just slowly leaning toward it, but then right behind it, you still can see the shattered glass case that had the Red Hood in it, and on the ground there's a slight blood trail. Leading this way. So you can see Alfred's following the blood trail. Alfred's, stalking and hunting down the Joker, but the Joker gets his drop on him. And I love just those couple panels. Horrific beauty of that sequence. And then even the panel right after where Alfred's holding the stump and just the shock on his face. There's some amazing stuff art-wise, in those couple panels.
I can't wait to see how this story plays out. I mean, it's just from the idea of this raft, basically this parade going on in the city, and just how he's basking in the terror he's created in Gotham. It's just amazing stuff. I like how we get this flashback to Gotham 1 hour earlier, where his team's kind of like looking at him going, that can't be the plan. I mean, just kind of looking at the desperation of this. It's very rare that you see Batman in a situation of desperation. He can't quite reveal everything to them, but he's telling them everything he possibly can, and the situation's bad. I love stories like this because we always see Batman one step ahead of everybody. With Eternal and with this, we've seen people one step ahead of Batman. Him having to use that same skill set that keeps him one step ahead to combat those people. It's how a character evolves. When you take them to their darkest and then they dig their way out again, they become something more from that. And we're going to see him become something more. His status quo is going to change, but we're going to see Batman be changed by this in some way. We're going to see a different Batman out of this. It may be subtle. It may be more pronounced. But it's not just going to be him, it's the world around him. And this is stuff you get excited for. You need to do this every so often. You can't keep it the same. A lot of times people criticize that they did the New 52. Well, Did everything work when they changed to the New 52? No. No status quo change when you do company-wide thing is going to please everybody or even be right. Some of the stuff they did before is going to be better. On the flip side, they did a lot of really cool status quo changes as well and brought back and reintroduced some characters that had been buried for a while and made them feel very current and very today. This is a great example, though, of a world that has benefited from a status quo change within a status quo change. New 52 hit. They've gradually built and come to this point. These are stories that are definitive. They will matter. The story where Alfred got his hand cut off is something that is going to be a part of lore from here on out. Even if they reboot Batman down the road and Alfred, starts off young again and do all that kind of stuff, people will still refer back to this story because it's a landmark story. Something pitiful happened. Something big happened here. It was something horrid for this character. This is a pivotal event in the life of Alfred. And wow, it's amazing with how much story is contained in this issue, how the Alfred thing seems like a small part of it.
Yeah. Something is, significant as his right hand, getting his right hand chopped off should have a much larger part. But, it's, again, there's so much stuff happening here. And with, just minutes ago when I was talking about how I love the fact that the court told him, pound salt, I like the fact that he then reaches out to the other villains. He reaches out to the other rogues that his team alone aren't going to be able to make it. And he needs, again, Batman is calling for backup from the most unlikely source. And I loved this meeting because you get these characters who, you get these wonderful villains who aren't just so one-sided that they're just one image. There's more to them. I love the fact that Bane is like, oh, I get it. The city's burning. Why not make time for one last match? Bane wants to throw it out with Bruce. You get everybody just, Croc talking about, oh, a snack. I'll start with Vegas here. Nice suit, kid. I was like going crazy, but one of my favorite persons in the scene was, of course, Jason Todd. He's sitting there. He's got the double guns out. He's got one on Penguin, one on Clayface, just ready to start throwing down at any point in time. And he's like, you know what? I take it back. I love this plan.
This is really, really good stuff when you see that these villains initially don't want any part of any of this. Why would they? It's not who they are. His compelling argument with them, the debate with them, and why he would go to them and what he's appealing to, and the fact that he's pointing to them and saying, the clown, and you need to understand, like, this clown, what he's going to do to this city is not something that is going to benefit any of you. It's going to take down all of us because of it. The argument makes sense, and the understanding why these villains would take that and make that statement is great. This is the penultimate issue of this series. I can't wait for I wanted more at the end of this. Yeah. I love that there was a backup story. The backup story by James Tynion IV and Dustin Wen and, the whole team back there was just as valid as the main story. We've had this background story of what was going on with Eric Border at Arkham and how Eric had basically in the time that we'd seen the Joker off screen due to the death of the family, Eric Border had inserted himself into Arkham and had been doing his own level of manipulation. This is when he was creating the legend of the Joker, the 400-year legend. Yes. There. So what is real? What is make-believe? I love that this kind of goes to... I thought this was one of the coolest things that was happening in Dark Knight, the movie, was the idea that the Joker was telling everybody a little bit of a different story about his background, but nobody really knows. Nobody has that power over him of being able to pull in his childhood and his past history, whatever it is. I would, if this was defined as the Joker was this 400-year-old being, would I be mad about that? No, because he's the Joker. He's kind of a force of nature anyway. Cool. That's fine. I don't think it's the case, though. I think this dude's playing with people's minds and just doing it brilliantly. And I think the fact that he's taken the Court of Owl's Kool-Aid has kind of helped him to... or a variation of that, has helped him sort of build this new mythos for himself that just fits the twisted nature of the Joker being this ambiguous entity. I loved the whole backup story because of that. God, yeah.
Yeah, and you talk about just how, again, it was funny because this backup story was the one that really helped me lock in the fact that Joker isn't this supernatural entity. Because for a while there, I was really starting to think that Joker was a supernatural entity, that he was something beyond just and this story really helped me put it into place because you see this doctor who, quote unquote, found out who the Joker was, a guy named William Distel. He was 4 years old. His sister went missing. He fostered families who are abusive, this and that, 6 different foster families, all these different stuff, and all this stuff laying on. You see the inmates going, no, it can't be true, lies, and it's really pushing them to the point where they're at that moment of pure violence and rage, and she's running, and I'm like, man, this is a cool story. Is this? And as I'm reading it, I'm still thinking, are they revealing the story of the Joker? Is this his real backstory? Oh my God, this is awesome. And then you get to the thing like, no, her good friend was Eric, who we know is the Joker now. And I was like, oh my God, that's great. I love this. And I was cheering, just because I was cheering for a backstory inside the main story. I was like, because again, it's layered on layered on layered of just, the swerves and the whatnots and just the confusion as to who is the Joker. There still is that mystery. One of these stories could have been real. One of these stories could be 100%. All of them could be complete fabrication. We don't know. We really don't know who is the Joker, even after all these years. And I love the fact that the way they tell the story, and they keep you wondering and keep you guessing.
I did my best to help you come up with the story you wanted, the one you needed, the grim and grimy tale of woe, the one a publisher would lay down 6 figures for. And heck, all I had to do is pay off a few foster parents, write a few government documents. It made you so happy. Why? The same reason I visited all of them. You wanted to know who I was. You wanted to know the truth, the deep down real truth. And here I'm giving it to you. What's this? 5 bullets in the cylinder. Since we're pals, I'm giving you a chance to decide. Which story do you think is the real one? That's the one that gets to live. That's what I've said from the beginning. But none of them are real, are they? Here's a 6th just in case. I'll shoot you. No, I don't think so. They'll be breaking through any second now, and I have places to be. Don't have time for a shooting. It's just, he is a force of nature. He is crazy. And it really is, why has Batman had such longevity? Yes, it's because that character is so cool and so well defined. But if you don't have stories like this for this character periodically, ones that make you go, wow, he got through that, you don't understand him as a character. Yeah. This is really, really good stuff. You need to have the villain that matches. The Joker has to stop being a joke every so often. He needs to be that character that's defined for a generation. From the beginning, he was always, this ultimate antithesis of Batman, the ultimate Batman bad guy. You can't let him, he gets watered down after a while because, you get beaten so many times by the Caped Crusader, you start to diminish. It's just going to happen. You don't believe it anymore. Oh, he beat him that time. I beat him through this. Now, the Joker, what's the Joker going to do now? Well, this is what he's going to do now. He's upped the game. Now he's valid again, and you never know what the crazy going to do. Really, really good opportunity to do stuff like this. This story is absolutely phenomenal. I loved the fact that in the book you could see the dedication at the end, the acknowledgments to Eric Border. Just what a twisted story. I love the cover. Greg Capullo and the whole art team. And if I'm butchering Greg's name, I apologize. I think I've got it. But there are artists that come along in the Batman universe that all do a terrific job with Batman. They put their own spin and take. There are ones, though, that are defined for an era. And Greg Capullo is going to be defined for this era. Whenever the Scott Snyder run ends, the Greg Capullo run ends, this will be remembered as a definitive artist on Batman. That's you got your Jim Apparos, your Neil Adams, you've got people like that have gone. Kelly Jones, Graham Nolan. There are people. I can go on and on. I'm leaving people out along the way that I shouldn't be. I'm basically going from my childhood straight on through, and there's so many more along the way that have defined Batman for a particular generation. And Greg Capullo's doing that. I mean, this is just really a unique style. I've got the black and white statue of his version of Batman. I love it because it's unique. It speaks to his take on Batman. This run, I can't wait to see how they're going to follow this up.
Yeah.
Because this is a big story. It's a landmark. And every time we think that they've gone as far as they could, like the Court of Owls, I thought was, their opus, their masterpiece. Then you read this and kind of go, wow, they're just keeping going and making landmarks. This whole run's been a landmark.
I was trying to figure out how they were going to follow up Death of the Family.
Yes.
Because you got Court of Owls, yeah. Then you follow up with Death of the Family. You're like, oh my god. Okay, where can you go from there? Endgame. Guess what? We're not done yet. And it just every one moment after another of just these oh my god moments. But the thing I love the best about just that one, the acknowledgement, but also the fact that when you count the shots fired, 6 shots fired, 5 for the bad guys, 1 for her. And that's why he gave her that extra bullet, just because if she didn't think that the version that she wrote was real, she could put a bullet in that way. And I love the fact that he did that and we got to see it. And I'm assuming that she didn't have to double tap someone, that 6th shot was her, because that's what the blood that splattered on the acknowledgement. But just the acknowledgement that she had to Eric was just wonderful. Because she's saying how, his tireless research is what allowed me to piece together this story. I remember the night I told him I planned to write the true story of the Joker. The way he looked at me, I couldn't read him for a second. But then he smiled so wide, it made my heart leap. Now that's a story I'd read in a heartbeat, he said. Well, here it is, my dear. I hope you enjoy it. I'm like, oh my God, that is an awesome, just that right there. I was like, that is so perfect for the Joker.
It is. It's terrific stuff. Want to go on to Aquaman?
Sure. Next discussion will be on Aquaman number 39. The writer is Jeff Parker, with pencils by Paul Peltier, with inks by Sandra Hope and Wayne Faucher. The colors by Pete Pantazis, with letters by Travis Lanham. Cover by Peltier, Parsons, and Burdo, with the Harley Quinn variant cover by Amanda Connor and Paul Lutz. Harvey Richards is the associate editor. Frank Peteris is editor, with Brian Cunningham group editor, and Aquaman was created by Paul Norris.
And apologies for any name butchery. I was laughing when I was looking at the creative team because I'm like, there's no way he's going to get it. And I wouldn't either. And apologies, because this is just a great, great team. It's funny. One of the things that comes up a lot of times with Aquaman, and I hear people talk about this, was the worry about what happens when Jeff Johns left Aquaman and who is going to take over. And wow, has Jeff Parker made me a believer. Really taken the great foundation that Jeff Johns has put there, but then added more to the mythos. And that's really hard to do, because what you don't want to do is make the best years the ones before you wrote it. You want to take and expand and grow and make the series flourish afterwards. And he's certainly done that. This is an amazing book. The fact that Mom is alive and was alive all along and escaped to rule her own kingdom is such a cool twist. And the constant wondering of, is she aware that Aquaman's her son or not? And does that matter anymore to her? Or is it her own validation of who she is as a queen there that's more important? Is really an interesting twist to this story. I am loving this book.
Oh, God, yeah. And I love the fact that just, again, you open up with just this really cool opening battle sequence. This is, I think one of the things that Jeff Johns brought to Aquaman was this high action, high boom. You get to see Aquaman's not just some guy who talks to fishes. He's somebody who can throw down. Add Mira to the mix. She's somebody who can throw down. And I love seeing that power. And right here from the get-go, right outside the gate, you have this fight sequence starting. I think that's something that the new creative team really kept that high action going. They kept the high, the high fight sequences, some really cool stuff, but they didn't just make the book about, it's not like a testosterone book. There is more being told there. There is some of those cool drama that happens in the court. You have, Mira, who a lot of times will go from being, super hardcore, kicking some butt to being a queen. And you see Arthur having that uncomfortable role as being the king, but he is starting to accept it and starting to have that nobility, properties to him. So when we get this pure, moment where he's just searching for his mother and everything that he's gone through to get here, you see just, one obstacle after another, and he finally gets to his mother. His mother's finally there, and her first words are attack. You're like, oh God, there you go. Hopefully, I was hoping for maybe some type of conversation here, but no, she's going on the offensive. And she's assuming, the worst. And I like the fact that she does initially, again, the running joke is when two heroes meet for the first time, they always got to fight. Well, this is a hero meeting somebody who has reason not to trust Atlantis. She has reason not to trust, Mira's people, because when she was there, they were rebels. They were not the good people. They were not the people that, you could actually deal with and be nice. So she's not going to initially know that somebody who can shape water, hey, that's a bad guy. Okay, now we definitely got to attack. This is the Atlantean empires found us and they're attacking us, defend our land. I love just how she initially opened up with that.
Yeah, the thing I love is Mira's being supportive. I really love the relationship between Arthur and Mira. I want to see them get married. I actually want to see that process happen in this, because to split up this relationship makes no sense to me. It's an important relationship in comics, and I want to see it build to that. I'm not saying that they need to go just blam, go ahead and do that right this second. I would love to see the gradual evolution to that. I think there's nothing wrong with having some characters that are. I mean, I don't know why that became a taboo thing, but these two together, I think, make for a unique experience. It's a different sort of buddy cop in the relationship between the two of them, because she brings so much to the table, but because she's his love, there's a different sort of interaction between the two of them that I think makes this book feel fresh, not only because of the fact that it's this underwater world with a different sort of power set, but it's because it's a couple that come from different backgrounds, but yet there's so much in common between the two of them that link them. They're almost both disenfranchised from their particular worlds, yet at the same time are thrust into a leadership position in Atlantis that people question because of the disenfranchised nature of both characters. The encounter with Mom, where he lays this all out and she goes lies and they battle. I can't agree with you more on the artwork, on the battle sequences in this. This book really shines by the fact that it's just gorgeous with embracing the underwater world. We talked about in Catwoman how the art style matches so much. This is a great book where very different art style completely matches the very colorful, very vibrant visual world of Atlantis and the various dimensions they travel to in their journey to try and discover Mom. I love that.
Yeah, and I like the fact that within this, it's, the reason she's thinking it's lies is because, what's his name? Orvax, had boasted that he had killed, Arthur, that he had killed them, and that was the final catalyst in her that made her say, okay, I'm going to kill you now. I've learned to kill because of this. And it was that loss of a son, the loss of, this, everything that she was, she wanted out of life, is what drove her to it. And you see that rage in her. And you see those, and this is 3 panels, double page spread. Again, non-traditional in that it's the full length. And I'm like, man, this is some cool stuff. This art sequencing throughout this book. I was so in love with the art team, during the Johns run that I was like, man, this is the great art. Oh my God. They've continued it. And especially I love these couple pages, when he first sees her and he first lays it out, just the look of his armor right there. When he's standing there in position, and you go on to the next page when they're in the fighting and getting blasted into next week, and the pain on Mira's face as she's getting thing, and just everything that's going on. There is some absolute beauty in the chaos, beauty in the destruction that we're getting here, that I was like, man, this is some cool stuff. When I went through my art sequence, my art read through on this, I spent minutes on these, just sitting there, just staring at the page, because there's just so much neat, just stuff going on with, and it's not just the pencil work, it's the inking, how they're going through with, I love how her energy blast. You look at how the color hues shift from, shift from that bright orange into like a reddish type of almost kind of like a rosy, not a pink, but not a red. And it just how it's kind of like a blend through. So it's, for me, I see it as at the head of the spear, it's got this massive energy, and then as the energy blasts, it's going to kind of shift and dilute a little bit, and then just like the energy ring that's there's just so many cool stuff that every single time she's firing up that staff, just the amount of details they're putting to this, like, wow, that is some cool stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. The funny part is her ignorance of this, or basically ignoring this, or not accepting this. If it is her son, it invalidates every decision that she's made since she found out they died. It drove her to this. She's used as a justification for a course of action, for a life choice, for a direction in her life. His being alive invalidates all of that. And that becomes a huge problem, because then you have to question every choice you made that was driven by this, every justification you made driven by that, every belief you've had of distrust, every action you took because of that distrust now is invalidated. It's a very powerful thing, and it leads to denial. I love how that's written, because you can see why she's so adamantly fighting against it. It can't be. I won't face that. I won't acknowledge that. And it's not in her face that she's saying that, but deep down at the core, it's why you can't accept that as the truth, because of what it means. That is really intense and very, very cool, and it's a well-crafted way of handling the story. I love the advisor. The advisor, I think, is absolutely fantastic. Talk about creating great characters. You can keep the cast very simple, and you get a very simple story. You add more complexity to the cast, and now you're adding different dimensions and different lenses into the story. Now the story becomes far more compelling because of it. Really well crafted.
Oh God, yeah, and it's, once again, you within this one issue of introduction to this character, you already start to get an understanding of who she is, and she's a supporting cast member. Mm-hmm. But still, again, just how they're presented her, how she's reacting to Arthur, how she's reacting to her circumstances, has been something that you're like, you know what? I'm like, you sit there, and whenever they introduce a cool character like this, I always go, oh no, did they just paint a bullseye on her? Is she wearing a red shirt? Are we going to keep her around for a while, or is she going to, actually, make it through? Is this going to be an ongoing character that we're going to have in the world? So it's, you kind of get worried about this type of stuff, but again, it's, within one issue, I'm starting to, understand the character and get adjusted to them, and want them around. You start thinking off page what would happen if they leave this area and they go back with Arthur to the world, and everything that could happen there, and just, all within one issue, I start thinking off page. I think that's, for me, is a huge statement of these characters.
And the question is, who would be welcomed and who wouldn't? Who would accept it and who wouldn't?
Yeah.
That part gets really interesting. I love the idea that because Atlantis is so vast and the underwater world is so vast, and now we're going to different dimensions relating to a travel system from Atlantis, that you're getting these mythical creatures, this, volcano beast and all kinds of stuff like that.
Volcano god.
Yeah, volcano god. I mean,
he's beyond a beast. Yes. He's a god.
But how great is this stuff when you see these worlds? You can see that this advisor's being inspired by Arthur, seeing the way that he's fighting, the way that he protected her. There's a valiant side to him that you can't help but go, wait a minute, I got to get to know more about this guy, because everything he's doing in his actions are matching the story that he's telling. He's not instigating a fight. He's trying to stop one. But we're not listening. Maybe we should. And that part is, I think, a really interesting and compelling story when you see him rescuing her. Again, we're seeing more of these creatures coming out of the woodwork. And is that her using her telepathic power to bring these beasts there? I loved the visual of that, because they're these wild, unique creatures and animals. And we're seeing, here's my question. If she's got that skill set, does Arthur have it?
I don't know. Because it's one of those things where she's got, this connection to this island. And even the advisor saying, hey, she's connected here. She'll know where we are. She, can get it from all the plants, and she can actually feel through the island itself.
Yeah.
So I think part of it is it's her personal connection to this island, to this dimension, on top of the ability to communicate with the animals. So I think it's kind of like a mutation of what Arthur has. So Arthur, I don't think, could do it right now, but if he spent enough time, I think he could maybe pull it off.
Or if he was in that location for years and years, he would become attuned to that area in the way that she does. Who knows?
Yeah.
And I don't mind if it's a complete variation that she has. When things are handed down genetically, they're going to mutate and be different from person
He's
to
also
person.
half human. So
Right.
you got that whole thing where, he's got a little bit of a mix from what she has passed down to him. So it's, who knows? Maybe she's got a wider variety of animal, communication than Arthur does because of the fact that she's, pure Atlantean.
Yeah. Who knows? That part is really, really great. Then all of a sudden the Atlanteans show up and you've got them versus her. We got, again, the volcano god comes out at that point in time, and we've got the Atlantean army there, who, it's interesting to see the Atlantean army rally behind the king and the queen when all of a sudden, what are they going to do when they find out that his mother's alive?
Right.
The political intrigue of this just kicked up a notch.
Well, and I love the fact that when they do arrive, they're like, protect the king and queen. They're wrecking, and you think back to just how long ago it was where Arthur and Mira both weren't recognized as king and queen of Atlantis.
Yeah.
Especially Mira. She was just, his escort or his lady friend. She wasn't even looked upon as one of them. Now you have these armies. You have this Atlantean forces who are like, that's the king and queen. And I love just seeing that, just knowing how far they've come. And, you get to that point where even when Arthur's telling him, hey, that's my mother, flat out telling the forces, hey, don't do that. And I like seeing just, again, how things are going to play out where, and, again, gets you wondering off page. Is she going to be able to make it back with them? Is she going to stay in this little world? What happens if she goes back to Atlantis? Is she going to be the queen now? Is Arthur not going to be the queen anymore? Are we going to mix things up? It's, again, I don't know where they're going with this. I'm excited for what's coming, but again, and just when you think things are bad, they always go to worse, and I love the fact that it's Mira. He's like, I hate to be one to keep breaking bad news, but things just got worse as you see the volcano god rising. And I'm like, oh man, we got some, this is going to be interesting fight coming down the line.
Lucy.
We got a problem.
Love this stuff. Love it because of it. It's a really, really great writing and a great book. It keeps maintaining an interest in the way it explores. If you don't take advantage of exploring the larger world, what do we love about the Green Lantern books? It's great when we see Green Lantern on Earth. It's just as interesting when we see him out in space interacting with different species on different worlds and different politics. This, when you take a look at how much real estate underwater covers and how deep it goes, there's a whole world that can be unfolded here gradually. Adding new dimensions on like they have with this dimensional travel just has taken things to a whole different level and kept it really compelling and interesting. What a great choice.
Well, the seven nations and all that stuff that they have, that they've been introduced periodically. They keep introducing this nation that wasn't actually long thought destroyed. Well, no, they're actually around still. You got this group that's still around. So there's still a lot more room they can go with this. And I like, when they started talking about those communication, transport, the teleportation portals or whatever, the gateways they were using to move between them. You look at all the different stones that were the destination stones, how many variations they had. So there's a lot of stuff out there that they can still go with. And I was just like, man, that's, again, it's funny because I'm sitting here just staring again at the artwork, and I've read this, multiple times. I've done multiple art read-throughs on this where I just focused on the image, and I just noticed something like 10 seconds ago. And I love when I find something new. It's on second to last page when Arthur's pulling away the weapons, from his people, telling him, hey, that's my mother, stop, and all that stuff, right before the big volcano god returns. You see the mom sitting there on the, kind of like on the background. You see her holding her staff, but then in her other hand, she still has Arthur's staff in her hand.
Yes.
I was like, man, that is cool attention to detail in just that little background. And you can barely see it because it's, a distance, and, it's kind of, not you can clearly see hers because it's got that really bright, head tip. But then in their other hand, she still has Arthur's staff. And I was like, oh, that's cool that they made sure that she has both staffs in hand. Yeah.
Those details are really important to catch, because we notice it. Sometimes we don't notice it as readers. It's subconscious, and maybe it's meant to be in the sense just to keep a mental continuity going. The fact that you go back and noticing it makes it that much more interesting. What a terrific, terrific title. Another home run from DC.
Oh God, yeah. I am so happy with Aquaman, and even like the way they ended Aquaman and the others, and they gave us a really cool ending on that story. They're doing Arthur's universe justice, and I'm happy for that.
I'm sad to see the others is not going to be a part of the lineup post Convergence, because the others has been a great series as well. I've liked having more Aquaman every month. The others has been a great book, and it's a character that I think warrants it. I hope that people, if you haven't read Aquaman, it's a great time to jump on board the character. I'm hoping the movie will give him even more increased notice, the fact that he's going to be featured in the Superman. Well, I think he's background in the Superman Batman film, but the idea is that this character is going to be leading into a Justice League movie.
Well, actually, let's take a couple quick seconds and talk about that, because we have a dramatic difference in the look of that Aquaman in that movie. They're going they've got the Samoan actor playing it. They're going more of the Pacific Islander look to them, and they're not going blonde-haired, blue-eyed superhero with Aquaman. They're dramatically changing just how he looks, and I'm going to assume they're going to change how he's presenting himself as well. I haven't seen anything about that, but we have a dramatic look change for him.
Honestly, I'm less concerned about the look change and more concerned with the presentation. I guess I'm looking at they're bringing the Atlantean King into this. I don't know that we're going to get that different of a presentation from him. I think you have to be very, very careful what you do with him. I think what they're trying to do is avoid him being the traditional joke that Aquaman has been considered in the past, and to really present him as the character we know him as in the comics. So I don't know that I think the visual choice is deliberate as a way to make people go, oh, wait a minute, maybe we don't know what we think we know about Aquaman. I'm hoping he's going to be closer to the comics. I don't think he's not. I can't imagine them, with the fact that DC Creative gets involved in these type of things, them having them go completely off in direction with Aquaman. I think the visual styling, though, is a conscious choice to make people talk who think they know Aquaman as this joke that he's always been considered. The series mentioned that in the very beginning as a kind of a thing that Aquaman's thought of as that way. I think they're more going to say, you think you know Aquaman? Well, you don't know Jack.
Well, the series mentioned it. Aquaman and the others mentioned it when Aquaman's fighting Cheshire. And she's like, "What? You should. You're beneath me on danger level. What the heck? I should have destroyed you by now." He's like, "Oh, really?" Bam! One punch drops her. He's like, And he was holding back because he didn't want to hurt her because she was such a power level lower than him. And I love the fact that just that one little moment, he just flexed the muscle a little bit and took her down. And that was a massive, highly trained assassin, but he is still Aquaman. He's still that warrior. And I like to see that there is that strength to him and just how they're going. But with me in the movie, I see them really taking hardcore warrior style to him. And I think that's why they did the change in it, because the actor, the Game of Thrones, Conan, we've seen that actor can do He can do power. He can do, somebody you do not want to mess with very easily and very well. He's got that great physical presence for this. I'm going to hurt you right now. He's got that, that physical presence to him. But there have been some, in those movies where there's been some cool moments where the guy is an actor as well. So it's not just the one dimensional type of actor. So I'm hoping they let us see, I don't know how you can do it.
Have you seen Game of Thrones?
Yeah.
Okay, Khal Drogo, even though the fact that there was a language barrier difference, when you saw him as a leader, there was something naturally regal about him. Forget the fact that he was more of a barbarian-type warrior. There was something regal in the way that he carried himself. He looked like a king. You need that in a leader. You're going to be able to, he's going to actually be able to explore his range more with Aquaman, but he's going to bring that to the table. I think the choice was very deliberate. As far as the visual styling, was to really define that this is not, your daddy's Aquaman, for lack of a better choice. This isn't the Super Friends guy. This is Aquaman. This is a different character. I think we're going to see him closer to the comics than we're thinking.
I'm hoping, and I agree with you that in those roles, he did have that leadership. He did have that king vibe to him. He did have that type of, that royalty vibe to him. So yeah, he can bring it to there as well as, and not lose 1 ounce of, tough guy. He's not just going to be the barbarian leader. He's going to be a king. But I'm worried. We know he could do it. I'm worried that they don't let him do it in the story because the character isn't going to have major screen time. There's not going to be a lot of time for him to actually, express that. And I'm worried that's, they're going to go, it's going to look like he's just, just this brute, this powerhouse, not look like, not get the noble Aquaman that we do like and we do think is really cool.
But I guess I'm not worried about that because I don't look at this Batman movie as being where we're going to get Aquaman defined. It's going to be a cameo. This is all building to Justice League. So, hey, maybe we'll get more screen time with him than we're thinking. I'm not thinking we're going to get a ton of screen time with him. I think it's more of a building and anticipation. We know Wonder Woman's getting a movie. That's been revealed that out of this, Wonder Woman's going to get her own movie.
Nice.
Out of this. So, are we going to eventually get an Aquaman flick? I hope. We know this is putting him in Justice League, so I'm hoping, based on the success of all that we do get an Aquaman flick. I saw their potential film slate, and I don't know if Aquaman was one of the films on the slate. If not, I'm hoping that it will lead to one, because I think he's interesting as a character, and I think the actor could pull off a great Aquaman movie. I'm not worried about it. I really am not. I'm not thinking that we're going to get this really defined Aquaman and Superman Batman. I don't think we're supposed to. It's a cameo, unless I'm wrong, and then they have a bigger role in it and that's fine. If I'm wrong and they do have more time for him and they're able to do it, I can't imagine there being a whole lot of screen time for him, though, because it really is, the movie is Superman Batman building to Justice League. So we're going to get, I think, a preview of some of these characters and cameos to build anticipation more than it being really defined. So I guess I don't think it's going to help with your worries on that end, but I don't think that that's a problem. I don't think we need him super defined in this. I think we need people talking about him after this. There's a difference.
Yeah. And I agree with you. It's going to be a cameo. It's going to be a bit shot. But, again, me. I like to think off screen. I like to think, well, what about this and this? There's so much stuff going through my head, especially because I like the actor and I like Aquaman. So I'm like, this could be something really, really cool. If we get something out of this. And I'm excited for the Wonder Woman movie. I'm hoping, again, a really cool character that I hope they just, they stick with and they do her justice, because she's, she's another one of those characters that I was like, man, she's been doing some really neat stuff here. I'm really digging, the Wonder Woman vibe.
I like that they're being judicious. Take your time. Do it right. I mean, I'm like the next guy. I would love tomorrow to have all these films come out. I'd like to be able to spend a week just watching each of these movies. I want that. Don't get me wrong. I have the same kind of excitement and eagerness for this stuff to be out yesterday as everyone else does. But I would rather wait an extra 2 years for a film and have it be done just right than to get it now and be sorely disappointed. So do I want a Justice League film spinning out of Superman Batman? Yeah, I want it done and done right. And I want to go afterwards. And you know what I want? I want Avengers. When I saw Avengers, I adored it. I think it was really, really a great movie. I want Justice League to be Avengers. Not the same movie, but I want it to get people talking and excited about these characters because these characters matter to me, just like Avengers do. I love, those superheroes. I love when I love seeing these comic book properties when they're done right on the big screen. So I want them to just do it right. I don't care how long I have to wait for it. Just do it right and make it something that I want to watch over and over and over and over and over and over again. Because of the fact that it was really that good and that satisfying. That's what I want. That's all I want.
And you think about how long the Avengers project has been going on.
Sure.
From the very first Hulks to Iron Man to the Cap movies, all these things. How many multiple movies in multiple years was it before they finally had the Avengers and,
right.
And the Thor movie and everything they had where they took their time with it. So, again, and I'm terrible with this. Yeah, I'm terrible, but you got to have some patience. You just got to, let the groove flow and let it come out how it's going to come out. But, I admit, I'm like, I want it now. I want it now. Please now.
And I'm fine with it now. I just want it now and done right. That's really all I care about. So, whatever it means as far as timeline wise to get it and get it right is all I really want. But I don't really have a problem with the visual styling being different. If the purpose is what I think it is. I think the purpose is to set him apart from people's interpretation of the character.
Yeah, because he still is mocked and ridiculed. Sure. And and it's people will, because I talk comic books periodically with people at work, and it's people who are fans of the genre, but they don't read any comics, or to people who've never read a comic who aren't fans of the genre, but they like to, just talk. And Aquaman is always the character that everybody always just laughs at. And I'm like, you guys don't know how cool of a character he is. Really? I'm like, he is an awesome character. And I'm like, and he's one of the ones that I've defended a lot. Same thing with Wonder Woman. She's another one that I've had to defend, just in conversations where people are like, oh, okay, they're used to, the Linda Carter TV version, which I love that TV version, not knocking it at all. But there is a difference between the Wonder Woman we're seeing with the Amazons and just the code of the Amazons and just the warrior princess, the daughter of Zeus, god of war. All these stuff that we've seen Wonder Woman go through to present day is dramatically different than what was the Linda Carter version. And the Aquaman that was in the Super Friends is so dramatically different than the Aquaman that we see now. And I'm hoping the Aquaman we're going to get on the big screen. So those are two characters that I'm glad is getting some time in the sun because, I'd like to say, see guys, these are the characters I told you about. This is how cool they are.
She defends you the same way.
Yeah.
Because, people give her a hard time about you, and she's like, you don't understand. Yes, I know he's the guy that, doesn't like bridges, and yes, I know he's the guy that uses made-up words like strategery and stuff like that. But you got to understand, he brings a lot to the table. He's a great podcaster. He's got good ideas. People like him. She just hopes you're really she just hopes you're interpreted well. Yeah, exactly. She just hopes you're interpreted well on the big screen. So it'll be
Hey, let's be honest, I got a face for radio. We all know that.
You and me both, my brother. There's a reason this isn't a video podcast.
Oh, God, yeah.
But so I don't get worried about that. I just want it done right. I don't mind slight visual changes for the big screen. Did you see the Supergirl outfit?
Yeah, I saw that.
Doesn't that look great?
Dude, that looks incredible.
Yeah.
I'm really digging that. And the funny thing is, I'm not a big fan of the skirt. I like the Kryptonian battle armor or the modern day costume, or even like the shorts that Jamal Igle put on underneath the skirt and all that stuff. But just that, looking at that, it's very nod to traditional. I'm like, oh, I kind of like it. You know what? I'm going to see this right here. That's kind of cool.
I think it had the right mix of classic with looking modern. Yeah. The color scheme I thought worked really well. I'm anxious to see the series. after seeing that, I'm like, wow, they really did a good job. It's actually a lot of times with costumes, I'm kind of like, ooh, I can't wait to see it on the screen to see what it looks like. This one, right out of the starting gate, I'm like, oh, okay, they did good. They know what they're doing here. They did a really good job. And I can't wait to see what that series. That's another series I want to do well. I want it to be well written with interesting characters, and I want to see it do well. So all this stuff, that's kind of where my head's at. I want it to succeed. You're right, Aquaman does look different, but I just think with the roles that he's played before, I think he's the perfect actor for this. I think he can. I think he's going to nail it. I really do. I think he's going to really surprise people. I'm not worried about him at all. I think he's going to just hit a home run. I think the second I heard the casting, I'm like, I don't care if his hair is blonde or not. I really don't. I just want somebody to get the core of the character. That's what I really want out of the whole thing. And I think he's going to pull it off. I actually think not doing the blonde hair might pay off.
Big time. I think it's actually, I like the actor is awesome,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm glad they are going different route with it. As I said, the only thing I am worried about is, are they going to give the actor the opportunity to flex the muscle that we know he has? And by muscle, I am talking acting muscle that I've seen this guy do some, the warrior, king, leader, just that presence to him. I've seen him do, the traits of that we love in Aquaman, where, he can throw down and he can fight, but he is still a king. I know the actor can do it. I know he's got the skill set for this to do it and do it well. I am always concerned with, are they going to let him do it? And that's what and again, that you got to wait till it comes out. I got to, just be patient, hang back and see what's going to happen. But, out the gate, the look, I am happy they're doing this. I am very happy they're doing this because I think he could pull it off. If given the opportunity, he could really pull this off well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. It's an exciting time. It's really kind of fun to be able to talk about these properties and hear that they're going to come to fruition, that we're going to get a chance to see them. And I want to see them and see them done well. Good stuff.
There it is, going into that tunnel.
This is Jack from Redlands, and I have to say that I want to rave about something. I absolutely loved Batman and Robin 39, where Damian has the superpowers, and him grabbing those villains and trying to put the fear of God into them by taking them out into the atmosphere and then almost losing them because the powers short out on him. And his attitude towards Shazam, Captain Marvel wanting to be his buddy because, they're both 13-year-old kids. But, Damien's kind of just blowing him off because he wants to be Joe Cool. And him blowing off Superman, I mean, that is the Damian that I love. I mean, this has got me so hyped for the new Damian series after Convergence. And I also like the fact that Clark was understanding about it. There was a cartoon show that I really enjoyed called Young Justice. And I think you guys talked about it. I can't remember. But the only beef I had with that show, and I really liked that show, and it was mainly in the first season, and it was Superman blowing off, Superboy because he was a clone. And that kind of irritated me because that's not Superman. Now, eventually, he comes around and he's the Superman, we expect. So I'm not knocking the show too much for that. But here, he demonstrates the Superman that is Superman, where he could have gone after Damian. I mean, who does that guy think he is? Superman's been doing this a long time, but instead, he's understanding about it. And that was just fantastic. And I also read the Superman Batman title, and that was awesome too. Gonna miss those. But my question is, what do you think about which one of those episodes or the upcoming series are you the most hyped for? Green Lantern Lost Army sounds pretty cool. I'm pretty hyped for that. Definitely, already said, I'm really hyped for Damian's title. But what ones do you guys have on the list that you're really really most want to see. All right, thanks. Talk to you later.
The first one that comes to mind for me is Dr. Fate. I'm a big fan of Dr. Fate, and the fact that Paul Levitz will be writing it throws that into the mix for me. I mentioned Grayson on this episode as a book that I'm really enjoying. I love the work of Tom King. He's becoming a writer who I'm really just... I'm finding when he writes something, I dig it. So Omega Men, not something I would go normally, wow, I'm really interested in Omega Men. Because of the fact Grayson's so good and Tom King's associated with that, I want to read Omega Men. I think it's going to be a cool chance. See, and I actually like that. I like the balance of, we're getting some titles like Batman Beyond and Green Lantern Lost Army. These are, familiar ones, Justice League of America. But in the mix of that, we're taking some of our smaller characters and giving them a run. So Omega Men, I'm in. Prez by Mark Russell. I want to give that a shot. I want to see what that's like. I read Prez years ago. This one's a female. And I'm curious to see what they do with the concept. We Are Robin is a big question mark. I mean, it's Leah Bermeo writing it, so I'm in on that part. I don't know what that is, because I don't know that it's as simple. I don't think it's an all Robins team-up book. I think there's something more to it than that. It's something different. So I'm curious to see that one. Obviously, Robin, son of Batman. It's kind of what I'm interested in. It's funny, I'm looking through the list. There's none of them that I'm not interested in. The only one that I've got I don't know what Doomed is. Scott Lobdell's going to be writing it, but I've liked his work at DC recently, so I'm interested in that one just because he's writing it. But I'm not excited about that because I don't know quite yet what that is. But the rest of the titles, I'm at least interested in. The Mystic U, Dark Universe, not sure the tone of those, but more of that's going to be good for me.
Yeah, with the Dark Universe, it's James Tynion IV writing it. So right there, I see that. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm cool. That's cool. Just because it's a writer that I think is awesome. So, and again, Robin, Son of Batman, probably, for me, of the new titles, Robin, Son of Batman is going to be at the top of my list just because I love that little monster. He's so awesome. And, you got, Patrick Gleason, who's a good writer, and it's a writer-artist combo they're doing there. So I'm like, oh, okay. So that, let's see where this goes, because, again, the character is such a cool character. And I think, the Starfire, Palmiani and Connor doing it. So, okay, that's, again, you see the names. And that's just on the new titles. Of course, with the continuation stuff, we just had a bunch of talks on Catwoman, excited about. Of course, the Six, is definitely, yay, going to be, continuing, the action going on there, and just the whole the Batman universe, etc. It's, so there's a lot of stuff that's, coming down the line that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, looking at the miniseries, and we got some clarification now that 4 of the books that were announced previously are going to be miniseries. Bizarro's a miniseries, 6 issues. Batmite, 6 issues. Harley Quinn and Power Girl, 6 issues. I didn't realize Stefan Rue is the artist on that. I think that's going to be beautiful. Yeah. But Garth Ennis and John McCrea from Hitman together again for Section 8. Hitman, actually, and The Demon. Actually, they did a great run on The Demon. Doing Section 8, they got me.
Sold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The fact that it's only 6 issues is the only thing disappointing me there. Yeah. Can we keep that? I hope it does well and it somehow is on. I don't know what it is, but I'm in. I mean, that has me super excited. Just the two of them back together again. Hitman's on my short list of all-time favorite comic series, in the sense that every single issue was a home run. I really love that series. It's one of we often talk about his work on Preacher, but Hitman, that was one of those. I was getting that shipped to the door, in the plastic backerboard wrapper that DC would send stuff in. That was at a time where I didn't have a whole lot of comic budget for a lot of the Hitman run, and it was one of those things where I asked for Christmas for a couple series as subscriptions, and Hitman was one of them that I asked for that purpose, just so that way I could get it. I would get it monthly without having to worry about, hey, I don't have the budget this month. It would come to the door. Very excited there. I don't really have any. The only one that I'm kind of like, what is it, is Doomed.
Yeah, Doomed and Mystic U are the two that I don't know what they are, but Scott Lobdell on Doomed, again, that's a name I've read, I've read a lot of cool stuff from him, so I'm like, oh, okay, and Mystic U, just because, I don't think I've ever read anything. Was it Alicia Whitney?
Alicia,
Alisa.
Yeah, you're adding another I in there somewhere.
Probably.
Yeah, I don't either, but I'm. I guess because I'm more in. Here's the funny part. I'm excited about that just because by the nature of the title being Mystic, Dark Universe, the same thing. They're clearly going to be on some level associated with the supernatural world of DC, and I'm all for all of that. Although Dark Universe, with it spinning out of this whole Convergence event, who knows? I'm going to try all of them. I hope they're all good.
Oh yeah. And you're going to get hits, you're going to get misses, you're going to get, So this is one of those things where I'm like kind of curious to see where they go. Like they've got some images of Annie Wu's Black Canary, and it's just a single panel issue, image. So I'm like, you can't really get any connotation of where it's going to go with that. You got to see it in the book, but that's definitely a different look to Black Canary than we've had in the past. So I'm kind of curious to see who she is and where she's at with that.
You know what? There's not a Palmiotti and Gray book.
No, I noticed that.
Because we're losing, the books we're losing is Aquaman and the Others, Arkham Manor, Batman and Robin, Batwoman, Constantine, Earth 2, Green Lantern Corps, Justice League Dark, Justice League 3000, Clarion, Infinity Man, and the Forever People. I'm sad about that. I really like that book. Red Hood and the Outlaws, Red Lantern, Secret Origins, Star-Spangled War Stories, Supergirl, Swamp Thing, Trinity of Sin, and World's Finest. Some of those are story-driven. Other ones maybe do the sales or direction. Did you see over the look at the cancellations, though? Did you see that cover for We Are Robin?
Yeah.
That if you click on that, that does not look like a book to me about our current Robins.
I think that's a book about kids who step up.
Right.
It's kind of like... the movement. How they had the movement, where it was like that underground movement of the heroes and stuff like. I think it's going to be something like that, but it's the people motivated by Robin is my guess. But again, I'm guessing just a flat out based on no fact, just based on a couple images and the title. So I don't know. It's again. I don't know what it's going to be, but I'm actually very curious and, there's a curious excitement level on it. Because as you said, Lee Bermeo's doing the writing. He's done some really cool stuff in the past. So, let's rock and roll with this.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it. So, I don't know. It's an interesting time. And these are important because I think whenever you do cancellations, my biggest worry is that we're going to homogenize the line, meaning that it's only going to be your top tier, well-known characters, and we aren't going to have enough experimentation. That's chock full of experimentation. I think that's great. I find that being a nice balance that I need in my reading experience from any comic line. You want to take some titles that these are our lock stock. These are the ones that people are going to gravitate towards. We're going to put our top tier writers on them because of the fact that they're our main characters, our most important franchises. But you have to include the larger universe into that. That's how you get those special characters that develop this cult-like fan following to them. That's how you get a Starman. That's how you get a Secret Six. So those books, Hitman. That's how you get those books because of the fact that there's a certain amount of experimentation going on. So I can't wait to see which one's going to be the next Animal Man. For me, I'm looking for that. So I'm excited for quite a bit. I want that surprise. So I'm more open-minded because I want one of those titles that maybe aren't on my radar to surprise me and make me go, "Wow! Now you're taking this concept and making me love it." Whereas before I was kind of like, that's good. Omega Men, I think, is probably the one that is standing out to me, and I'm kind of going, all right, if you told me an Omega Man series, I'd be kind of like, okay, I'm going to check it out just because I want to follow the larger universe, but it's not my number one choice. You put Tom King on it, I'm interested.
That's an interesting. I'm glad you said that, because with Omega Men, mm-hmm. If I didn't know Tom King was on it, that would be a title I wouldn't be. I don't know if I would have been too interested in actually picking up. Mm-hmm. Just because, I'm going to read all these and give them a shot. Just partially I do it because of the show, I need to, but the other part is, let's see what's out there. But, if I'm being completely honest with everybody, if I wasn't doing this podcast and this list came out, Omega Men wouldn't have been it wouldn't have been on my radar. But once I heard Tom King's name, I'm like, okay, now I'm in. Because I like his writings. I like what he does. I'm like, okay, I see his name on it. I'm in there. It's the same, statement I made, with Dark Universe and James Tynion IV. It's that same thing where I was like, I see that name, I'm jumping on that. So, so with Omega Men, I think Tom King's a good choice for it. What I remember and know about the characters, I think, he'll do a pretty groovy, kind of style with it.
Yeah, that's a great example of one where I'm also following the creator. So I'm in on that one because I just happen to really like the creator and like his work. So I'm excited to see what he does with it. And I'm in with that too. I mean, I couldn't argue with that. That's exactly the reason why I'm in on it.
Hey guys, it's John Sokolowski calling in again. I just want to let you guys know that I have indeed, in case you were wondering, fully recovered from my mind being blown. Took a little while, but it's better now. So called to let you guys know that. And just wanted to talk about a couple things. It's what's today? February 26th. So New Comic Day was yesterday. So many things came out. Holy crap. The biggest ones for me, I haven't read everything yet, but Batman 39, holy crap. That's all I got to say. I got to be 100% honest. This is the best issue of Batman I've read, and it may be my entire life, and I'm really not exaggerating. At first, that was my initial reaction, so I made sure I sat on it a day, read it again a couple times, thought about it, let it sink in, and no, it's that good to me. It just hit on every possible thing, and I love the whole mystery with the Joker and whether or not they're, the whole possibly him being immortal or however they're going to work that angle, if it's true or what it's all about. I'm just so into it right now, and I'm one of those people that doesn't believe villains need much exposition. That's why I never really liked the Killing Joke. It's great, but I just feel it's not needed. But this, I really like. I think it's crazy interesting. If that's what they're gonna do, I'm obsessed with it. I'm into it. Crazy. The Flash 39 as well. Great issue. I still kind of wish there was a new art team on it, but it works. I can see so many other artists possibly fitting this better, but overall the story, I'm into it. It took a bunch of issues, but it's hitting. And there was a couple of holy crap moments in here for me with Selkirk and the whole lightning rod situation and the Speed Force. I don't want to say too many spoilers, but that had me kind of like, holy crap. Crazy awesome. I can't wait for the next issue. Another awesome issue was I don't buy the Secret Origins, but I decided to pick this one up, 10 because of Batgirl's origin, written by the current writers. And I forget the artist's name, but it was good looking art. But this is the best origin in Secret Origins I've seen thus far, and it's great having something different than Batman and Superman. It was cool. It was cool seeing it, the origin told this way and answered a couple questions. I really dug it. Haven't read Aquaman yet, but I can't wait to see what his mother's all about. She looks crazy cool on the cover. Gotham by Midnight. Wow, that's another one. It's 4 issues in now, and I dig that we haven't seen the Spectre yet, but I guess in this issue we get to see more of that, and it was crazy. Again, I don't want to say any spoilers, but holy crap, that's another holy crap issue. I'm going to just call them that from now on, holy crap issues. So I guess the 3 for me this week were Batman, 4, Batman, Gotham Knight, Flash, and Gotham by Midnight. All holy crap issues for me for the week so far. Haven't read Aquaman yet, so let's see. And Future's End was cool as well. Not quite a holy crap issue, but it was fun. So that'll be it. Just a couple of stream of consciousness thoughts I figured I'd let you guys in on, and to let you know that my brain is recovered for now. Until next time. See you guys later, John. Peace.
We're actually going to stay mum on the Flash because we're doing the Flash next week on the show. So we're going to be talking about that issue pretty heavily. So it was great that in many ways, this is kind of a precursor to what we're going to discuss next week. So it was kind of cool. I love conversations like that because we all have those weeks where it's like issue after issue after issue. You're just kind of like, wow, that was cool. And that's part of why we read these things, right? It's a nice escape from everything else. And when there's something big going on in our favorite titles, and you get those moments where, wow, this happened and that happened. He's right. It was a big week with a lot of events happening in a variety of different titles. I'm glad he talked about Gotham by Midnight because we haven't talked about that in a while. We're going to have to, in our various scheduling, get to the point where we can talk about that book again because we talked about the first issue, but I'd love to revisit it and talk about it just because I actually love that they haven't overused the Spectre. The mystery is far more interesting because you want to get to know Corrigan. We talk about that with Selina, actually, on this issue with Catwoman, how it's fun to explore the character in the costume. And I think with Corrigan and the Spectre, a lot of times there's the jump to the Spectre. Don't get to know enough about Corrigan. Far more interesting when you know both. So I'm glad that they're using this series as an opportunity to get us to know a little bit more about who Corrigan is while he's got the Spectre inside him.
Yeah, and Gotham by Midnight's another one of those continuing titles. So I'm glad to see that. I was glad to see that one survived.
Mm-hmm. I think Arkham Manor, the only reason why it's being canceled is story.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that's going to be a very story-driven solution. I guess. We'll see how that plays out, but I'm assuming that was probably meant to kind of wrap at that point. You never know. But Gotham by Midnight, yeah. Because it's a dark corner of Gotham. And it's another supernatural title, but it's a supernatural title that is touching on characters and themes that are unique to that title, as opposed to being filled by a different one. And Corrigan especially is a character that I really like the exploration. I like the whole team in that book. I think it's just an interesting book so far. So I'm glad it's sticking around, and I hope people are giving it a shot.
Like a human helicopter, the Flash rotates his body, rising faster, faster!
I want to shout out our show website, ragingbullets.com, where you can find out what's going on with the podcast when the episodes are released. It does feed into our Twitter. It's funny where you're thinking Twitter before you get there, so you're making new words like tweed.
Hey,
let's trademark that, Jim. We're going to invent tweed. It's not just a clothing style anymore. It's it's on the internet. No, it does feed into our Twitter. So if you are a Twitter fan, that's a great way to get instant feeds from our website. We do have a regular Facebook fan page where we post information on when our podcasts go up. But there's the Facebook group, which is such an amazing community of people. I want to shout them out. Thank you to everybody who does that. There's regular hangouts on there. They post news and information. Not just what's going on at DC. It's all through pop culture. It's just great discussions going on there. They do live chats during some of the television shows, which is great. So the overall community, I think, is great, and it's just filled with amazing people. So thank you, everybody who's there. The community's grown so far beyond our podcast, and that's really due to the quality people there. We're also on Google+. We have personal Facebook pages, and there's lots of different ways to find us. I'm on the PlayStation Network, so if you're a fan, if you've got a PlayStation 3 or 4 or whatever, or a Vita, feel free to add me on there. Links to that are on our website. And that's about it. Besides our voicemail line, our show voicemail line, which you heard some great voicemails on this episode, is 1-440-388-4434, or drnorge on Skype. We love having you part of the show. We air every voicemail, so please, if you have comments or thoughts about anything, whether we've talked about it on the show or not, feel free to put it on our voicemail line. If you've got something to shout out, and it's okay if you shout out things that aren't DC related. If there's something going on that you want to shout, if you have a blog or a podcast, feel free to call in and share your thoughts on topics that would apply to our show, and shout out yourself as well. I'm a big fan of community. So don't hesitate to shout out your own things when you do make those calls. That's a great way to have people pointed to what you're doing. We are sponsored this episode by DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Jim, what bundles at DCBService.com?
We currently have issue number 2 of the 40 crossover line for the Convergence storyline coming up. This does not include the main Convergence miniseries. These are just the 40 lines, the 40 crossover lines bundled together, 50% off. You get it for regularly it's $159.60. DCBS prices $79.60.
Over at InStockTrades.com, Jim, they have these deals of the week, and it's funny. I kind of go through them, and I mentioned before Dead Boy Detectives at $7.49, Justice League United hardcover volume 1 at $12.49, Teen Titans Go 50% off only $6.49. This one's a Marvel one. I'm looking at it. It's Supervillains Unite. It's the complete supervillain team up. And it's 464 pages. It's a $34.99 book. It's 50% off only $17.49. It collects the various supervillain team-up issues, 1 to 14, 16 to 17. This was DC. I mean, no, not DC. I'm sorry, Marvel villains teaming up. Like on the cover, it's Doctor Doom and Namor teaming up together, and it was a twist on Marvel team-up. Not being Spider-Man and another character, it's now two villains going together. It was cool. I was a big fan of it. I never read all of it. I'm grabbing that one. Just because I always loved the concept of it, and the issues I read, I really quite enjoyed. This is the thing I'm really loving about collected editions now, is the ability to grab full runs of current material, but also classic material. And they change those deals of the week nationally every week because of the fact that they're deals of the week. So please bookmark that site and pop over there and see what you can get at 50% off from their site. Their discounts are staggering, though. They have they often run 70% off sales on a variety of different companies and more. I'm actually looking at a 90% off sale they're running too for various different publishers. So you're going to want to go over to that site and just kind of browse around and see what you can get. It's real easy to bundle things together and save some money through InStockTrades.com. Our next episode, Jim, we are going to be talking about The Flash. We're going to talk about Wonder Woman. We're going to talk about Grayson. We also, anything else that goes on during the week that we kind of pops into our head, but those are 3 titles that we are going to talk about next week. Every so often we have like a brainstorm during the week where there's an issue that forces us to bump a book that we were going to talk about, and it's kind of fun to just do that organically because we always try to grab things that we're really excited to talk about because it makes for a better podcast episode. So we kind of like doing this format. We have a big anniversary episode coming up at the end of the month. We are going to be recording our 9th year anniversary Raging Oscars, where we are going to be sharing with you our thoughts on the last year. And we're actually finalizing now details on what that's going to look like. We've had a few different ideas, and we have one that the two of us really like that we just need to flesh out and start putting the work in to get it ready for you for the end of the month. But we've always done that traditionally a little bit differently every year to just we want the episode to feel fresh every time we do it. So because of that, we make little tweaks and changes to it to just keep the show interesting and feeling like a different sort of experience every time. So we will share more details with that next week. We will see you then.
Bye!
On November 13th, Sean Whalen was asked to stop constantly talking about comic books. That request came from his wife. Deep down, he knew she was right, but he also knew that someday he would find someone that would talk to him. With nowhere else to go, he appeared at the home of his childhood friend Jim Segulin. Sometime earlier, Segulin's boss had requested that he shut up about his comic books and never speak of them again. Can 2 grown men put out a DC Comics podcast without driving each other crazy? It's Raging Bullets, the DC Comics fan podcast. With Sean Whalen as Dr. Norge, and Jim Segulin as the Sensei of the Whatnot and the Duke of You-Know. It's a spoiler podcast, so they will go in depth into the plot line, story twists, and whatnot of the comics they are reviewing. So if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you may better enjoy the show.